Hello, I think you can hear me now, so let's see if we can click the button. Hi, hello everyone, and welcome back, welcome everyone. We have a question already from Max, and have I been needle binding something recently? Not recently, I really want to. It's been a lot of knitting with the shawl, and I have a lot of thinky, researchy, reference type videos that I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I really want to. I want to get back to needle binding, and I want to do some socks and I want to. Just like tatting, I really want to, and there are just not enough hours in the day for me to do all the things that I want to do. I mean, I know you as crafters can relate with the endless project list just getting longer and longer and longer and longer, and your ability to actually finish the list just gets progressively more impossible as years go by, because there are just so many things I want to make. And all the crafts, especially when you are a craft accumulator like I am, and I know some of you are, who just want to learn all of the crafts. So I want to. I haven't been able to since the candy cane hat, which was so much fun. That was a really fun project. I think it's a really fun, really simple technique, but I hope to do more. I really hope to do more. I hope to do both a tatting video and a needle binding video, like another one this year. But we're almost halfway through the year already, so let's see. I hope to. I really, really hope to. Time goes so quickly when you upload only 2 videos a month, and it's a bit scary, but the honest answer is I really hope to make more needle binding videos, and we shall see what the summer brings. Hello, madam. Was I being too noisy for you when you were sleeping downstairs? Hello everyone again. Hello Kayla, hello Miss Hearts. Hello little madam visiting me and hopefully not eating my audio cables. They are not snacks. I don't know about your furry friends, but Madam Soot here is good about all electric cables that we have except audio cables. So headphone cables, microphone cables, anything that is that thin width of a jack 3.5mm audio cable is for some reason a snack, when nothing else is of interest, which I find very strange. But what can you do other than guard your audio equipment the best you can and never leaving it unattended? Let's see. Is there... No, I still can't see when ads are showing up, but hopefully for those of you who have been joining us for more than one live, you should have a more streamlined a less disruptive experience now, because I went to have a look at how YouTube were automatically inserting ads basically, and I was horrified at how often they were being inserted, even at the conservative setting, which was not what I want. I hope to get to a point where I know when ads are coming, that find a system for that in some ways, so that we can all take a break, so that those of you who do get ads don't miss out on any content, basically. But at least it should be a much more seamless experience, where instead of ads every like 5 to 7 minutes or whatever it was on the conservative settings, it should be no more than 2 to 3 ad breaks per hour. If you see more than that, like, let me know. I'm trying out these settings and hoping we can find something that we can all live with, because I mean ads do help fund the channel, much as none of us like ads, but I still don't want it to be super disruptive to those of you who live in regions where there are lots of ads, such as the US and Canada, because I know there are a lot more advertisers there paying money to reach you. But yeah, hello Toria from Zealand, Denmark, and I see a lot of familiar faces, which is fun in terms of this little live space. Maybe I shouldn't wear so many black shirts, since you can't actually see Madam as anything other than a black blob, as she's enjoying her chin rubs. Hello Milia. Goes to find a craft that should be a gift for tomorrow. That sounds like us crafters, always working until right up to the end of the deadline. So I hope you're having a good time. What are you making? What is the gift? Can you tell us, or will it be like that? You were getting every 15 minutes? Yeah, that is not too bad, but I still think it's a bit frequent in terms of what is compared. She blends? Yeah, she definitely blends, unless she's yawning like that. She's very blending into the background. Hi madam. You're invisible to my viewers, you know, much as you are snugly. Pennsylvania, USA here. Welcome, welcome. So I've set it to every 18 minutes. It was between every 18 or every 24, so I'm not sure. I will play around with it and see what we find acceptable and not too bad, because I don't want you to be inundated with ads all the time, much as they really help. I want us to also be able to have a conversation. First time catching a live from Scotland? Well, welcome! Welcome to our northerly neighbors. Oh, the shawl symmetry, it helped? I'm so glad. I wasn't sure if it was going to be too abstract, but I'm really glad you got some help out of the shawl symmetry, and I got some out of it too, because in writing that for you, I went back and edited the original document and uploaded a new PDF with that clarification added to the pattern. So in a way, your question helps everyone who probably have similar questions. So in that way, I think you may have helped lots of people who probably had the same question, because I knew that was also going to be the big weakness in the tutorial, was that I wasn't able to explain how the symmetry worked. So I think you were quite right in catching that as a weakness. So hopefully the pattern is a little bit more understandable to people now. So I hope that helps. So in that way, thank you for asking about that, because I think you helped a lot of other people who are now going to be able to download the pattern with that clarification as well. Kitty is denied? Yes. She is very much so. And now she's on my lap snoozing as like a little cinnamon roll, so now she's all out of frame, but she's so very warm and cuddly and fuzzy. It's going to be in the 90s Fahrenheit today, so of course I'm working on a heavy wool sweater. I mean, as you do. Wool is always appropriate, isn't it? I mean, nice light summer shawl. But that is... And hello from the US, more hellos from the US, welcome, welcome, everyone from all over everywhere. It's so fun to have so many different people from all over the world. Pardon, madam. Dell suggests that maybe audio cable resembles a mouse tail. Who knows? I am not sure why she is so preferential to audio cables, especially because, I mean, USB cables, charger cables, any other type of cable is fine, which I'm very grateful for. It's not very nice to have a furry friend who chews on cables. That is not something that we want, neither for feline safety nor the equipment that we are using. But how are everyone? What are you working on? How are you doing? I keep hearing where you are from, but what kind of project is in the works? Let's see if we can work on this a little bit off center so that madam can still sleep without being too disrupted. I'm sorry, madam, for disrupting your nap. That is not my intention. Let's see, where were we? But yeah, I am, because this is how we be apparently, I am jumping straight back to a second shawl in the same pattern that I already made for you. So yeah, you are slightly off center, aren't you? Because that is how we roll apparently, just jumping straight back in and doing things all over again. You should be over here. You're about to sew a new button onto a pair of dungarees. Love to see it. Love to taking care of the stuff that we have. Elena is having some coffee and financiers while I continue this ridiculously dense sashiko cloth. That is really cool. Are financiers some kind of cookie? Are they? Because it sounds like you're having a meeting with a financial advisor or something like that, but I'm assuming that is not quite what you are doing. And Catherine as well, doing an expansion on a dress for May the 4th. Star Wars joke among Gen X and many others in my region. I love that. Oh yeah, of course, May is coming soon. May the 4th be with you. Maybe that is when we should have been having our live as a little geeky celebration. I don't think I have any Star Wars paraphernalia that I could have dotted around in the background, but that could have been fun. And Tiffany is tying bundles of Icelandic tog rocks for the summer festival. Cool. So lots of different things going on. Eleanor says, I think it's great to make a few of the same of similar patterns because it firms up in your memory. Good point. It's also a fairly easy pattern once you get into it and you understand how it works. So it's one of those things that we were visiting friends, you know, and you can bring it with you because it's a fairly simple project to do in the background while you are talking to people. And some patterns I can't do that with. I can't bring them with me when I'm visiting friends because either I would get so focused that I can't talk to them, or I would just fall out of the pattern and have to redo large parts because I don't do things correctly, which is a little bit frustrating. But easy patterns like this I find is very nice once in a while. And this one I'm not filming, so you're only going to get to see it in the live and maybe later if it finishes in some of the videos as a finished garment, but we are just going to be working on it off camera, apart from the lives, and as an evening chilling out restful projects. Lynn says they are an almond-based cake made with egg whites and butter. That sounds lovely. It sounds really nice. Almond makes so many great cookies and cakes. Nice flavor. I have learned to make sweaters without a pattern in crochet, and this is number 3 for that reason. If I make just one, I will have to do the tutorial all over again. Yeah, that's a very good point. that we have to do it repeatedly until it sets. I still find that unless I do it regularly, it will fall out of my memory a bit, but it's still nice to be able to have some of those projects that you can just make and remember how to do. Try finishing a cardigan and stalling at the zipper insertion, finding out that doing and making is becoming more important than finishing. I can relate to that. Sometimes I find that both the beginning and the end can be challenging for different reasons, because at the beginning you have to figure out exactly how to do the thing, or cutting out pieces, you know, having that cutting anxiety, in this case we're trying to film projects for you. I have to get out the camera and have a good light and make sure that I show you parts of the beginning, because that is often things you like to see. And whereas when you're in the middle of making it, you just kind of enjoy making it, which is nice. Ads all over the place. Okay, let us take a small minute breathing break and see how people are faring. It's very nice of you to let me know so that I can try at least to accommodate a little bit. I know it can be challenging depending on the lag from the chat, because we are letting people have closed captions and things. I guess that is as good a time as any for us to have some tea. Interesting, there is no lag here at all. That is very interesting. So the way that YouTube is set up is that you have to have some latency between what I'm chatting about and what shows up in the chat. Otherwise, the people who need it can't have closed captions. So I think there is a couple of seconds lag between when I can actually read your chat messages and respond to them, and when you actually sort of see them show up, if that makes sense. They're supposed to be... Catherine says take longer to post than for the ad, but communication is important and so is tea. Yeah. So we did take a little bit of a break and talking about the latency. So I don't know, previously they would tell you how long the latency was for, but I can't say that I see that anymore. If I go into my little YouTube settings, boop. Yeah, it just says normal latency. Like you have the ultra low latency, which is barely any, and then there's low latency and normal latency, which is where we are at, and that gives us that gives us closed captions, which are important to me for accessibility, since that is something I use myself as well. So that gives some latency between when I see your messages and when you send them, as far as I understand. So there should be a small latency between... What are we doing in terms of the pattern? Between what you see and what is there. I don't think that is quite right, madam. I think you've made a small mistake in your counting. Speaking of shawl symmetry and such things. But yeah, Eleanor commenting that I don't understand how folks can do really complicated projects while visiting friends. Yeah, and complicated depends on the person knitting them, but I kind of do patterns where I need to follow really complicated patterns, at least for me, patterns that I'm not used to, patterns that are new to me, patterns that have lots of moving parts where I have to keep referring back to the paper pattern and things like that. But I can do simple patterns that I can either have a small little diagram next to me, or I can have something like that to make sure that I actually know what is going on. You're still off by 1. That's what happens when we try to talk stream while things are happening. I'm a professional at this, I swear. Northeast US, welcome. It's always nice to have people from all over the world. Depending on the time of day, we will get Australians, we've had Japanese friends, we've had French and Danish and Swedish and Icelandic, and it's so nice to just have all sorts of different... Oh, I see now. I see what's going on here. There was a stitch that was supposed to be taken in last round, and that is why my count is off. We love to see it. But yeah, we get friends from all over the world, and it's just one of my favorite things about the internet, the whole globalization of everything. But yes, madam, you are supposed to be 1 stitch, not 2. Hello from France, just joined picking up my project. Nice! 2 friends from France, welcome. Just nice to have a lot of different neighbors show up. I know we have friends from Sweden and Denmark, and we've had other people from Norway, and it's just a lot of fun having all sorts of different nationalities show up and talk about their different experiences and different projects and different things that they are doing and different cultural things and experiences, and I find that is a lot of fun to hear how things are the same and how things are different. It's just one of the big benefits of the internet, I think, the ability to talk to people on the other side of the world without, you know, waiting weeks and months for a letter and knowing the person in the first place. It's just amazing. Max says, for today's new project I decided to make a hat in the round start using the Mum and Stitch by F2 connection, using a light grey yarn, and maybe I can add dark grey with a bit of red. That sounds like an excellent needle binding project, or null binding. Still, tongue twister for me to not say that in either translated English or Norwegian, but that sounds really nice. It's really, really cool. There are a lot of fun ways people are either modernizing null binding or trying to do old patterns or trying to do different kinds of stitches and combining stitches, and yeah, so many cool things, and you can think about it a lot in a similar way to simple crochet and get so many different styles, and it gets so thick too and so warm. I really like that in the middle of winter, to have something really, really nice and dense and warm. You're from Ohio, born and raised? Well, welcome. That is a very large ocean and many, many miles off. That is... But yeah, I think it's super amazing that we can talk to people from all over the world, sharing our craft experiences and our joy of crafting and our joy of creation, and just let everyone come in and be welcome and have fun. How are if you have pets, how are they about your projects? Do they run off with them? Do they leave them alone? Do they fight with your yarn for your attention? My cats are generally, so it is generally quite nice when we are crafting, but if I leave out balls of yarn, especially wool, in the night, she will run off with them and fight them with her back paws and, yeah, treat it like a prey. And sometimes she will steal tiny balls of yarn and tiny scraps of wool fabric and come find me while she's yowling. And she's so cute. I can't, admonish her because she's so adorable trying to come to me with her prey. But madam, that is not super useful to hunt my craft supplies. More Tiffany from Ohio too, welcome. Greetings from Germany. Unfortunately, I have to finish something for work, so no crafting for me. Happy to catch you live though. Well, that is nice. We can still do, you know, the whole body doubling, supporting each other while working on stuff things. And I also enjoy the soft background music. Is it a specific genre? Is it there yet? It is there yet doesn't conflict. I'm glad you think so. I have some struggles with audio processing myself, so I generally try to leave the audio at a very low volume, so it should be easy to pick out the voices. It's one thing that it's a little bit of, like, it's a tiny bit of a soapbox. It's a very small soapbox, but it's like this tiny thing where games have had the ability to control sound effect, music and voice volume separately for decades already. They have had that almost since the start, almost as long as I can remember. You did at least have a slider for voice volume and music volume that you can control, you know, independently. But that is not a thing in movies and videos, and I mean, how many of us have complained that you try to turn up the volume on a movie and then the background music goes up as well, so you still don't hear anything, and then there's an explosion or something dramatic happens and your eardrums are just blasted because you didn't get more comprehension of the dialogue, you just got more of everything. So I super wanted to be a thing that I could export 2 separate audio files basically for my videos, and that you then as the user could have like the recommended selection of audio and music, but that you also had the ability to individually slide the different sections so that you could have it at a balance that you can hear or you can enjoy. That doesn't seem, to my non-video initiated simple mind, that doesn't seem like such a difficult thing to implement. I mean, we have dubbing files in videos and movies, so why not individual audio and talking, or like audio and music tracks? That seems like something that should be possible, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know the intricacies around video uploads in that way. Hello from Japan. It's 20 minutes past midnight. Hello, Nao-san. That is very late. It's very late to be up. I hope you are doing alright. Max says the pattern from the character Death from Puss in Boots has inspired me to create an idea and pattern as well as design. That is so cool. I love when you create things based on characters and inspirations and stuff like that. Catherine says, I would call the genre of this music modern or contemporary classic. Yeah, as far as I know, like a lot of the things I enjoy are modern classical. I think it's the genre. It's, you know, modern composers, often with piano, but other instruments as well, who compose pieces that are classic inspired, but from a modern composer and a modern vibe. And I think a lot of them are really amazing. Somehow my live stream playlist got eaten up by my audio or my music player though, and just sort of, so I had to just throw in my tranquil piano music just before the live today. I'm not sure why it did that, but who knows? It's the fun things of computer stuff. Lynn says, my sister's cat is thankfully shockingly well behaved around my craft things. That is a relief. It can get a bit intense if they always try to eat your wool. Kayla says, I don't have pets where I live yet, but my best friend's cats love my wool and are always very watchful and interested when I knit or spin at their house. Yeah, the managers are very interested. We do get very interested managers here as well, especially when it's something new. Marianne says, my cat tends to sleep on my sewing projects. She's not hunting the yarn usually, but she will sleep on it and put fur on it, of course. Yeah, but that comes with the territory. The fur is a part of it. Catherine says, I feel as you do about music control. It would be lovely. Yeah, and it seems like such a simple thing. It's just, I don't know why that is not a thing. It's because they want to control the whole audio-visual experience, I get, but get, but it's accessibility. Why wouldn't you add that for people who need it? Elida says, greetings from Alaska, trying to practice double knitting. We wish you the best of luck as you commence on this glorious quest alongside us. I am sticking to a single color because I just love lace knit patterns. I think they are a lot of fun. Lynn also says it would be incredible with your separate audio controls. Yeah, it's like one of those like tiny soapbox, like not a proper soapbox. It's just one of those things that it seems such an easy thing to implement that I don't understand why it's not a thing yet. But we can wish and mention it, and maybe one day if the channel grows big enough, someone at YouTube will talk to me about it and we can chat and see if it's possible, and maybe it will become a thing. Maybe. Or we will just stay small and cozy and intimate and just have a good time all together. That is also completely fine with me. Max says, while I use the main color as light grey, I could use a small amount of dark grey or black to create the mask look and the red for eyes. Again, a little bit of black yarn to embroider some pupils. Yeah, it's fun to do both, isn't it? I have had projects where I've just embroidered patterns on top after the project was done, and I've done stuff where you have it into the pattern itself, into the yarn, and I find both of those are rewarding and fun. So it's just whichever brings you the most enthusiasm at a set moment, or combine the two, by all means. That is also fun. Adele says, my dog runs away and holds anything that I touch ransom when he wants attention, food, or retreat. Not helpful. That does sound a bit, yeah, that it would be a little bit troublesome when dealing with the craft. Our cats don't do that, luckily, but it may get a little bit prickly with me, like a little bit. You can see that she's looking at me a little bit unimpressed if I drape my crafting project on top of her and disrupt her as she's sleeping. It's something that I try to get her used to, but I also feel a bit bad just sort of piling my wool on top of her as it moves as she's sleeping. I wouldn't enjoy that if I was sleeping, but she is very tolerant usually, especially when she wants a nap. Although she will sometimes give me a side eye when I start talking or doing voiceovers in the middle of her nap, because why wouldn't you just keep staying quiet? Kay says, my elderly dog doesn't mind my crafting as long as she gets her normal amount of pets. That does sound like the best of both worlds. You get some crafting and they get some snuggles. And Del continues, I've managed to train him not to eat my stuff now, thank goodness. That is very good. If they do run away with your stuff, at least they don't eat it. That is an excellent compromise, I guess. But yes, it will also run away with my socks. They are, you know, when they are freshly washed and you've just bunched 2 socks together into a nice little container, they are excellent toy-sized and very much fun to run away with if I don't hide them in a drawer, so... Kay says, thank you for your focus on clear audio. The number of videos I ended up muting because of distracting background music and trying to get by with auto-generated subs, then had to give up on entirely, is frustratingly high. Yeah, I can emphasize with that. And I mean, this accessibility shouldn't be like this, but I do feel like because I have similar experiences myself, I do struggle a little bit with audio processing, especially when I'm tired. I do try to focus on that, but there is no reason that I should focus on some accessibility features only because I experience it myself. And but yeah, trying to do the accessibility that I have the time for, and like the image descriptions and stuff is important to me, because there are so many people with disabilities that why would you exclude them from your content? I don't think that's very nice. We want to include everyone. Catherine says, I have a very special shoelace with a 2-meter yard long string for the cats to play with. I link it through one of my fingers and hold it away from my work so it moves when the yarn thread moves. That is very clever. Continues, my cats know it's theirs and they can attack it as much as they like. it has a cat toy on the end too. That is very clever. I like that. And we have something similar where there are a couple of balls of string that are for the cats that they really enjoy playing with. And break again. I feel like that is a bit more often than... Because we started at 5 and it's 5:30 and they've already been 2. We're supposed to be every 18 minutes, YouTube. I think we're gonna set it down to every 24 minutes next time. But it's good that you're back, Del. It's still something that I'm trying to work out. There is a Twitch streamer that I sometimes watch that does similar content to what we're doing, only for, you know, game developers and people making games, but it's the same kind of inclusive, trying to encourage people to make things, trying to encourage people that they can do the thing, that they can do what they want. And they have this thing where they know when an ad is coming up and they break, and I just want to figure out how to do that in a way that works for both of you. Because if it was just me having to click a button every time I wanted to do a live, I'm not sure I would remember to do that, because I get caught up in the conversation and then I forget, and then I guess it's, yeah, it's always things to be figuring out. Where are we? We are there. Alright. Del says, my dog knows exactly what items are high value ransom items. They're clever, aren't they? At the moment it's my pincushion. Oh no! I have to be careful with pins. I have pins in boxes because when pins are inserted in clothing, you know, as I'm sewing things, if she wants to lie on something, she will eat them. Or not eat them, but like she will bite them and pull them out and, you know, remove them from the cushion that she wanted to lie on, which is not something that I want, and also I am worried that she will accidentally swallow one, so I do keep my pins stacked away in boxes. I had to stop using pin cushions because I got so worried that she would actually swallow something. So I hoped you would grow out of it, but she hasn't, so I try to limit her exposure to roundabout pins as much as I can, because hopefully the theory is that they can grow out of it if you limit their exposure. But if you let it be a thing that they see regularly, at least with cats, they keep doing it. So I try to limit it. I have hopes one day. Max says, I'm autistic, have ADHD and many other things. When I work on null binding, I brainstorm some ideas and designs of what I could make and how the results might affect. Yeah, it's a very nice practice, and I think it's very nice and relaxing to be able to do these kinds of crafts for a chaotic brain, because you can have progress and you can make things with your hands, that kind of, you know, physical movement of things, so that your brain can get a little bit of a rest, a little bit of a break. When we know that a lot of people, when studying, especially with ADHD and other kinds of things where they need their body to move in order to focus, some students, you can do things like you can have a little bit of a bike or a walking treadmill type thing so they can move while they're thinking. And I know a lot of adults will do things like, you know, they have knitting projects in the auditorium when they're studying with their lecture, or when they're in a meeting. You know, a lot of people doodle in their notebooks and get yelled at by the teachers for it, and a lot of teachers don't understand that for a lot of people that is the only way for their brain to focus, is by having another outlet. So I really encourage crafts for that kind of getting some of that restless energy that some people struggle with into a form that they can, and then they can still focus on things. I know several people with ADHD, and they will either usually default to some sort of toy or clicker that they can use, or to crafts of some description, whatever interests them, whatever they find fun and enjoyable. And I think that is really nice that they can have something that they can do, even if it isn't always super understood by workplaces and schools and things like that. But I have known a couple of people that were actually allowed by their workplace. I think they were working in a customer service type job, you know, on the phone, talking to customers, dealing with customer information and updating memberships and that kind of thing, where they were allowed to have crafts on their desk so long as it didn't impact their performance. And what they saw was that performance didn't go down, it went up, because you got some of that restless energy out of them where they would be distracted otherwise. Now, son, it's great to be able to knit patterns while talking without making mistakes. I wish. I still make mistakes sometimes, especially in the beginning of a new project. But yeah, it is nice when you manage to do a simple project. I know that a lot of people will, if they're knitting sweaters or socks or things like that, will make sure to bring especially the stockinette type, you know, where you just do straight knit for several rounds. Like after you've done the pattern of the top of a sweater, then the rest is just the body in a plain color. They will bring that because it's very nice. You get the double whammy, don't you? Either by sitting and enjoying someone talking in a live or a podcast or an audiobook, and you can. So a lot of people get bored, but you can also use it as a free something to do while talking to friends, because it's easy to do and then you don't have to sit there by yourself. So I know some people like intersperse it in that way, that they specifically bring stockinette projects to friends so that they don't get bored, and they also don't make those mistakes when they are knitting more difficult patterns and trying to focus on the conversation at the same time. And I also see you leaving longer comments now, Sam, which is excellent, and I hope we are able to craft a space where everyone feels safe to talk about stuff and leave comments and have fun. I am at least having fun with the lives. That is why they are continuing. I was so scared in the beginning. I don't want to go back and rewatch it. I'm almost tempted to unlist them, but I won't, because I like showing people that it's okay to be bad in the beginning. It's the same reason I haven't unlisted the atrocious first video that I ever made about, you know, the 3 hand stitches that I use the most. It's so bad. I cringe just thinking about it. I certainly don't want to rewatch it. But in a way, I hope that if someone sees my most recent video and they go, oh, but I could never do that, but they actually go back and look at the oldest video that was so bad and so basic and so different to how the videos are now. I hope they feel a little bit encouraged, because we all start somewhere. Eleanor says you did absolutely fine on your first chats. I will take that. I will take fine. That's okay. I know I wasn't excellent, and that is completely fine with that. Like, I'm not looking for people telling me how awesome it was, because I was really my nerves were outside of my skin in the first one, but then we discovered that they weren't so scary. It was actually quite fun to be able to talk to you who watch my videos in a very different way from the comment section, and I find that was a lot of, like, very nice to be able to do that with you in such a different way. Ben says, I like going back and look at people's early videos. They're often so nice and genuine. Yeah, exactly. I know some people like to curate their YouTube page, and some people advise that, like, that people should do that, especially if they have very different content in the beginning and they want to curate it so people know what they're getting and that it's all a little bit cohesive. But I feel like it's all sort of stayed under the theme of textile crafts and textile history and geeky textile fiber arts type content. So I'm like, no, I want to keep it so that people can see how badly you can start out and still have progression and growth and change. Just like when we start a new craft and it's, you know, difficult in the beginning, and before you know it, if you keep at it, it starts becoming muscle memory and easier, and your brain starts thinking and seeing how different, like you can look at a knitted garment and see it was put together in that way, where before you couldn't even imagine doing that. And I think that is super fun to do. Julian says you actually go out there and make the videos. That takes a lot of courage. I will admit I have a bit of a cheat in terms of that. It's a lot of people think that you need to love being on camera and you have to be a little bit self-absorbed to film videos and upload them. And I suppose for some people that may be true, but I try to look at it as I want to show a craft to you. I want to show this project to you, the viewers. I want to convey this research that I have done about this textile history subject to you, and lacking funds to hire someone to do that talking for me, I can do it myself. But I find that when I focus on, as we are two friends, I want to take this thing, I want to knit this thing, and I want to show you, the viewer, this thing that I made, and I want to show you this project I've been working on. I find that takes the bravery or whatever required to make those videos and put those videos out there. It draws the focus away from me and puts it on trying to make things that you find enjoyable. And I find it enjoyable showing you these crafts and these projects and these videos, and I at least find that a lot easier. It's one of the reasons I will have a little bit of my face in my crafting videos, but a lot of the times, it's just my hands, it's just the project, it's just parts of me. And a lot of the time, if you haven't actually gone and looked at that, but if you look at how much of my face you actually see when I'm making a thing in percentage of the video, I don't think it's very high. Because I find it weird. It's one of the things that I will grow tired of when editing, when I'm doing, talking head, more research videos. It's like, oh, I have to look at my face while I'm editing this entire thing. It's a bit weird to be looking at your face talking all the time. I find sometimes that still weirds me out a bit, but that is sort of my little cheat in handling that mentally, is that I think of it as I want to show my viewers this cool thing, and the only way I can do that is to film me doing it. So that's just going to be the way we're going to do that. So if any one of you want to make videos, that is something that really works well for my brain. At least it takes some of the load off me and feeling like I'm making it all about me, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you supporting the channel, enjoying my channel, leaving comments, talking, chatting, engaging. It could never have gotten this far without your support. So in many ways it is about you. It is about the viewer enjoying the content and having fun with it and creating that community with you. Flower Joy says null binding, forgive spellings, that's fine. I don't think it is properly included in English vocabulary yet. It's still fairly young. It's new to me. Will you describe it? I've heard of it sort of like knitting with one needle. I suppose that is a decent example. Do I have... I think I might have. Can I reach it though? I have a needle here, but it's a very small needle. It's not my big needle. And I have Soot on my lap, so I can't just jump around and get it. Hello, madam. Are you awake? Snoozy child. Are you going to leave me in that way? Or are you just gonna lay down in the other direction? You're just gonna lay down on the other side? Okay, cool. Let's see if I can pull out my little dinky old project bag that is just a reusable bag, reused as a project bag, which I think is fairly common. I should really make one. Let's see what sort of... Don't I have any thicker yarn? I do like do like working with my thin yarn, that is true. Ben says, sometimes I think about making a channel for cooking, but then remember I don't want to be perceived. Maybe one of those faceless channels. Yeah, you could totally do that. You could totally make a faceless channel. I don't particularly like to be perceived either, and to be honest, I just try to ignore it. I try to not think about it. I try to not focus on that, and whenever someone leaves a comment about my body, not about the project I made, whether good or bad, I just don't respond to it. No matter if it's nice, I don't engage. No matter which direction it is in, I just don't. If people are commenting on the project that I made, that is fine. On clothes that I made, that is fine. But as soon as they get on to what I look like, I just don't engage at all. That's just, no. It's so uncomfortable. Ad break again? Okay, let's set up. Wait. This is not the greatest color to show anyone what I'm doing, is it? Why don't I have any thick yarn easily available? You are so cute and so in the way in terms of showing people what needle binding is, and I don't think we can do that. Ad break in the US too? Thank you for letting me know. It helps me. I don't want to chase you away though, madam, but I was going to show the nice viewers some needle binding. But I do have a tiny needle. It's a very tiny needle. Is it a snack? It's a bone, so maybe it's a snack. Are compliments on my outfits uncomfortable too? No, I feel like that comes a little bit with the game. Since I'm making a thing, like a shawl, I don't mind comments about the thing that I made, you know? So I generally don't mind that, personally. Because I made a thing and I am showing you the thing. So it's just when it's my body. That is just a personal choice. Let's see. Ah, madam has left the building, so let's see if I can get my big needle binding needle. You didn't mean to put me on the spot, perhaps another time? That is fine. I have two needle binding videos on my channel already, so there is some content there if you want to watch it. I do keep getting my stitches wrong though, which is I feel like it's just becoming a thing at this point. I will misname it slightly and the more technical needle binders will be a bit like, nah, that is not quite right. So I feel like it's almost canon at this point for me to get the stitches slightly wrong. Much as I try. But needle binding, yeah, knitting with a needle, I suppose that is one way of putting it. That was a nice length of thread. I also feel like it's a bit like sewing a fiber arts garment. It's a little bit different. I do compare it to crochet though, but unlike crochet and unlike knitting, you have to have a set length of thread, so you need to do it can't be machine washable wool, it can't be cotton. Ideally the easiest is wool that is untreated because it felts. So when you need to splice the yarn, because you only have one length of yarn at a time, you can do that. So let's see if I can show you. This is going to be very awkward. But you start with the loop on your thumb, and I'm just gonna do, I'm not even gonna say what stitch this is because I don't even know, but it's unlike knitting and unlike crochet, and you don't do loops that go through the yarn. You actually go all the way through the stitch. You see that it goes through the stitch, which means that instead of loops like knitting and crochet that unravels, you actually make knots that don't unravel. So you get a slightly thicker fabric. You get it's a little bit, depending on the stitch, it can be flexible, but sometimes it isn't, or sometimes it's flexible in one specific direction. And it's very nice because while you can't unravel it when you make mistakes as easily as maybe you can with knitting or crochet, it does have the advantage that if, oops, we are out of focus, if a thread breaks, if you snag against something sharp like a thorn or it just wears out, then it doesn't unravel in the same way that knitting or crochet does, which I find quite nice. So generally you use quite thick yarn. I don't know if you can actually see this properly. This is not this is not ideal showing off style thing, but it's sort of, there are many different stitches, and the thing is you kind of pass your needle through, can I show you this to you, through the previous stitches, and then you push your needle all the way through and you get a new loop that sits on your thumb, and this becomes the new loop. And as you go through the old loops, this thumb loop becomes the sort of previous stitch, and then you get a new thumb loop. So the stitches is dependent, a lot of the stitches are dependent on how big your thumb is specifically, which I think is quite fun. It adds a personal touch to needle binding that you don't see in other crafts that are entirely dependent on needle sizes and crochet hook sizes, whereas here it's actually dependent on like your own thumb. And the needle, for some stitches, the needle size does have an impact. This is one of the reasons I got a very tiny bone needle that is super cute and handmade by a Polish bone craftsman who is super skilled, because I want to do some of the smaller stitches. I just need to master these starting in the round technique, which I haven't yet because I keep messing up my increases and getting something that isn't super even, so I still need some practice there. But a lot of the stitches, so you see this needle is fairly big. It's several inches long and almost a centimeter wide, and I think it's about 10 centimeters, so about 4 inches long. And you can have a lot of different, my first needle ever was hand carved from a piece of firewood because we wanted to try this new technique that we heard about on other Viking markets, and we just couldn't wait for something to arrive in the mail. It was very fun, and I kept using that. It was actually turning out to be very good because the wool is slightly abrasive, so even the unfinished needle, much as we carved it carefully out of wool or out of wood, it actually got softer and more polished over time, because all that pulling through all that wool yarn over time, it made it softer and more polished. And the only reason that I couldn't use it anymore was because I had a mishap with a bag and I broke it. Wasn't the needle's fault at all. So home carved needle is perfectly functional, perfectly workable, perfectly fine. It was just that I accidentally broke mine, so that's why I had to get a new one. And then this one, I just fell in love with this one. This one is yew, which means that naturally it has a heartwood that is a different color. So you see it has two colors here. There's a light color on this side and a dark color on this side. and that is not laminated, that is just a wool, but I just thought it was so cute. And it has this slight, it isn't perfectly straight, it has this slight curve, which actually I think is really nice because it sits really nicely in my hands. And yeah, there's just a lot to love, and it's very portable. Like crochet, my spouse likes to point out that they like crochet over knitting because they only have to keep track of one loop at a time, and in a similar way, needle binding, you only have to do one loop at a time. It's very portable, it's very nice to travel with, it's very nice and stable, and there are many different things, and it's just a lot of fun to do and to keep alive these crafts, because I do like keeping alive crafts that are getting endangered, and a lot of people are forgetting because they aren't as efficient, they aren't as fast, and so they are sort of being forgotten by the wayside. But I just love all crafts, and I just want us to keep doing all sorts of, just like with biodiversity of species, I want biodiversity of crafts. I want crafts to be preserved. I want people to do things in different ways and show people different ways of doing things and share their love of doing things with their regional differences, because why should we all do everything in the same way? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's much more fun to do things differently with regional differences and then share the joy of making things and showing people how our crafts are different and how they are similar, and showing off the joy of everything. So we'll check other videos. Didn't know a specific needle is required. That is the first step. It isn't actually required. You could use a large darning needle. I don't know if I have any in close access. I think this is a bodkin needle for threading bodkins, but a large darning needle, a large tapestry needle would work. The only problem with metal needles, even the large ones, is that they have a smaller surface area, like the eye of the needle is a little bit more narrow, so you risk when you're pulling on the yarn a lot, if you don't, move where the yarn is, that you wear out the wool yarn and it breaks. Whereas with these smooth wooden needles, you have a lot more surface area, if that makes sense, so it wears a little bit less on the needle. But I think you can use large metal needles that usually come in a set of several needles, so you don't have to have a large wooden needle for it. It's just more fun to use tools that they might have used in the past. But for trying out the technique, you can totally use just a large needle with a large eye for fitting larger wool yarn and larger amount of thread. So I always recommend doing your best to use what you have, or try to find a way to use the things you already have and see if you can make that work just to try out a craft, because maybe you don't enjoy it as much as you would. Maybe you would enjoy it with better tools, but it's nice to just try out the technique the best you can first with cheap, already available or free tools. Like the first time I tried tablet weaving, I cut out the cardboard backing of my sketchbook and used that instead of buying proper cards from a craftsman. That was something I did years later when I had saved up a bit for it and knew that I enjoyed the craft already, so that I didn't end up with a lot of tools for crafts that I didn't actually enjoy, because that is sad. Lulu Bell says, and my cat just chased the balls of yarn off my lap so she can lay there herself. Relatable. Very, very relatable. Kyle says, hello everyone, I just started making my own bone horn needles, so this is fascinating. We have a maker in chat, fantastic, who makes the tools that we need to use. That is amazing. I have never tried bone carving, I've only ever carved wood, and that is so cool to me. And Lynn as well is in love with bone and horn needles. I know, they're gorgeous. I have a reindeer horn needle case that I bring with me for medieval markets, because we argue that if it's historical to Sami, then if you lived in the north you might have had access to it through trade. So we like to do that as a little Sami representation, and I know a couple of friends who do the same, and it is gorgeous. It is so pretty. It's hand carved and just crafting skills to admire. absolutely admire. And it was from a small Sami craftsman having a little stand outside of a mall when I studied in the north, and it's just amazing. It's so beautiful. I love it to bits. So many skilled people. And I'm a bit behind on chat, so sorry, but also commenting that Morgan Donner did a lovely video on making a cap while she moved cross country a few years ago. She talks a bit about the process and history too. Absolutely, that video is a lot of fun. And also talking about that they're in the same way, would love to make videos, but I'd be exhausted just getting my face beat and my coif coiled. Yeah, it can be a big spoon task. I like to say that making a thing and documenting making a thing are two very different hobbies, because you spend at least half of your time documenting and filming the making of the thing as you do making of the thing, and that is just filming it, and then I have to go and edit it and do stuff as well. So it is a whole separate hobby and something you need to be sort of separately interested in, because it can suck a lot of the joy out of making things if you let it, if you don't actually enjoy filming it and editing videos and publishing it. So if you don't think that you would enjoy making videos, don't. If you would like to try, give it a try, but also be absolutely kind with yourself and let yourself, stop if you find that it is sucking the joy out of the project that you used to enjoy. So there's a balance. We talked about endless project lists earlier, and they're even more endless now because I am also editing and trying to show you what I made, which shortens the time that I have to make things even more. So it is. The filming and the editing is a whole separate hobby that, I will spend a week making a thing if I'm quick, and then a week editing a thing, and then we start all over again. So definitely try it out if you're interested, but don't be afraid of giving yourself a break if you need that as well. I don't think there's any shame in that whatsoever. And my yarn broke. So that is what happens when you use old inherited yarn, and that happens, but that is okay. I think it's not a very good demonstration because I can't zoom in the way that I would when I'm filming, but there are a lot of other videos out there showing what it is, but it's a lot of fun. I recommend giving it a try if you enjoy learning new fiber arts, so absolutely have fun with it. Lynn says, one of my dreams is to learn to make combs and pins and needles. Do it. There are so many good crafters out there. So many good and fun things to do. There are so many crafts to learn. I once attended at a Viking market a glass bead making course. That was a lot of fun. So much fun, making a little clay kiln and just having different glasses that all melt at different temperatures because of different colors in them, and that was a lot of fun. Such fun, and great appreciation for people who make that for markets all the time. And Max says, I typically use bone needles I have when I null bind because it feels smooth, and though it has two eyes, one large and one small, I typically use the large eye to hold multiple lengths of yarn. Interesting. I've never used a needle with several eyes, I just have one, but I have used both bone and wood. I found that especially a nicely polished hardwood needle will absolutely be very smooth and nice to work with. And sometimes if you have a softer wood, like we did firewood in birch, it will smooth out as you use it, as you pull it through the yarn, which is very cool that the tools adapt as you're using them. Kelly says, I just joined. What are you going to be making? Actually, I was just demonstrating, trying to softly demonstrate needle binding and how you sort of pull your needle through a project instead of making loops like you do with knitting or crochet. So it's a series of knots rather than a series of loops. So it takes some more time, and you can only work with a set length of time rather than a continuous ball of yarn. But it makes it sturdier when the yarn breaks and you have to repair it because it doesn't unravel in the same way. But I wasn't supposed to get stuck in doing it. I was just going to do a demonstration. I was supposed to be knitting my stuff, but yeah, I usually start with making a length and then I combine it and you work from there. Some people do patterns for needle binding, but I generally just work in until this big and this small and this wide and then it just sort of works. Boop. Max said, I usually use acrylic yarn since it's not only cheaper to buy, but it's also easier to use and it'll last me longer than what I need. Interesting. I've never tried to use acrylic yarn for needle binding because I don't know how well it would felt. I usually use wool because I just enjoy the feel of it and I know it will felt, but I've never tried any of the synthetic ones, to be honest. At least I know cotton wouldn't felt on me, so maybe you would have to make knots instead. But you use what you want to use. I'm never going to shame anyone for their crafting. Ad break and back, yeah. I am behind on chat, I'm sorry. Yeah, I am never going to shame anyone for their crafting choices, for their crafting tools, for what they can access, what they can afford, what they want to use, what they find comfortable. I get some comments sometimes that people are like ashamed to tell me things because, or what they use because they feel like it's not as environmentally sustainable. I will get friends to be like ashamed because they had to buy a second car to pick up the kids from school or kindergarten, and they sort of tell me in this sort of way as if I'm going to judge them, and it almost makes me feel bad and a little bit sad because is that really what you think of me? That I would go around and shame you for your choices? That is not my desire at all. That is not why I make these videos. That is not why I make content. I just want to give people information so that they can make informed choices on their own. And then what you do with that information is up to you. I am not here to be your internet judge on environmental and textile choices. That is not a role that I want in any way, shape or form. I just want to do research and share interesting stuff with you so that you can make your own choices yourself. Del says, so sorry I've taken the role as ad monitor. Don't worry, if you are doing that, then I try to follow along, but I'm a little bit behind on chat, I am noticing, so I'm sorry that I'm not catching all of them, but I absolutely appreciate that you're trying, as we're trying to figure out a way that I can take breaks, but I don't get a timer on the YouTube, so I think I would have to learn to manually insert them if I was going to absolutely control that, which is scary, but we will see what we noodle with the settings. Animal says, thank you for the live stream. I have to leave now. Well, thank you for being here with us. Hopefully see you at some other time, and have a good wherever you're going. And Kale says, thank you, Del and Paige, so I don't know when they happen, and will sense a pause in the hat, not realizing why. Yeah, we were talking about it earlier before you joined us, that there is this Twitch streamer who does like wholesome game development content where they do a little bit similar to what I try to with encouraging crafts and encouraging creation and encouraging guilt-free creation, you know, fighting that toxic perfectionism and just doing the thing, but in a sense of encouraging people to make games and do streaming, and sort of a little bit different, a little bit of quite a different community, but a similar kind of, I feel like, message, you know, just go out there and be creative, just make the thing. And they have this thing on Twitch, at least, where they can see when ads are coming, and they have a little timer, and they can sort of hit a button and people see that there is an ad for people, and they just take a break. And it would be nice to be able to do something similar. I haven't found a system yet on YouTube that allows me to do that without it entirely relying on me as the creator to remember to click a button to insert an ad, because I know I would absolutely forget that unless I had a very big, I don't know, clock on top of my laptop screen telling me to put in an ad, which I suppose I could look for something like that just keeps counting down from a number, but I haven't found something yet that I feel would work, so we are trying out different things to make people feel included and not feel like they are missing out on content because they aren't, you know, monetized or paying for premium or have the financial means to do that, because I don't want people to feel like they are being left behind. But I'm also just a single creator, and managing the live stream. It's something I'm still getting used to. So we are trying to find a balance that leaves everyone hopefully satisfied, because ads do sadly run the internet, and that is kind of part of everything. But we also don't want to overuse them, because I was monitoring how YouTube placed things automatically, and I was horrified at how often they placed them. So we are trying to have them a little less frequent, but still supporting the channel in a way. Over talking and getting iced tea. At least I like iced tea. That's honestly wonderful. It's a lot to handle, but I appreciate you fostering this space. Thank you. That is what we're trying to do, giving people a space to be creative. You know, it's and at least I'm trying to be transparent about these things. Is how I feel, the way that we can at least have some trust in that regard. But yeah, it's some people don't have people encouraging them to be creative. I've heard people talking about people not understanding why they craft at all when they can just buy the thing instead. And it's like, yeah, but and they just need some crafty friends online where they can have a little bit of support to have fun and share that crafty joy of having made a thing. Because no matter what you've made, there is that joy of being like, I took this resource, this yarn or this wool, and I turned it into a garment. How magical is that? It's a kind of mundane, everyday magic that I think is the best. You made a thing, you took care of someone, you did a cool thing. It's just there's a lot of magic to that making in this day and age of just everything trying to be a service, something that you pay for, and sort of encouraging people to only go to work to earn money and then pay for every other service. I mean, you're supposed to get a meal delivery kit, you're supposed to get a subscription to your local exercising place instead of doing things like going for a walk or helping someone or you know, doing a little bit of gardening. Or so I feel like they are trying to tell you that you should only go to work to earn money, and then you should pay for every other service so that makes money for other people and that keeps people employed. And I don't really like that way of of designing society. It was an interesting study. I don't remember where it was from, but it looked at many countries in Europe and which countries had the most, you know, exercise over a week, a month, a year, and they ended up concluding that Eastern Europe, you know, places that weren't so well off, so the Poland, Ukraine, Estonia, that kind of, because they didn't have a lot of financial means, they didn't go to, you know, gyms, they didn't lift weights, but they had populations that biked to the grocery store, or they walked, or they took public transit, and they would garden a bit, growing some veg, and they would go walk the dog, and they would do all these sort of micro movements throughout the day, throughout the week, and they just moved the most in total, compared to a lot of us in wealthier countries who sit a lot to work, either in front of a computer or something else, and then you sort of try to carve out an hour or two in the week to go exercise and make this whole thing, whereas they just moved throughout the day and ended up having more movement throughout their time than we did, which I find fascinating and so illustrative in a way, without glorifying, you know, not having money in any way, shape or form. I just find that interesting. Capitalist culture. I don't skip the ads because I know you benefit the income. You can always come watch back later. You can absolutely skip them. I don't think... Does it make a difference? You can skip them. I'm thankful that you are here watching them with me, but I don't mind if you skip the ads, honestly. I know ads can be very frustrating, especially when they are counter to what we are actually talking about on stream. I don't know what ads you're getting, but I've heard people getting things like Temu ads, and you know, ads are by their nature encouraging people to buy things, so Yeah, it's whole thing, you know. Lisa says, these live streams make wonderful company while I'm working on my remote sensing final project. Oh, remote sensing is so cool. So cool. Think about the archaeologists discovering whole, you know, habitations, whole settlements just from looking at the structure of satellites and seeing that it has certain features that looks like foundations, and that is so cool. And people measuring, you know, pollution from tank ships, no, not tank ships, cargo ships crossing the oceans, and that knowing exactly how and when and what kinds of ships are going where, because we have satellite images of that. You cannot hide, and you cannot hide that you were releasing your spill oil into the ocean, although you are very much not supposed to do that. Remote sensing, remote imagery is so cool. So cool. So many possibilities, so many things we can do with that. And Catherine says, thank you for a lovely chat. I need to go drive now. Appreciate your community. Well, thank you. Only 2 ads so far for me in the US, by the way, so less than every 35 minutes. That is good to know. So maybe this is a decent balance, because I know that when you put in an ad, it's only a chance of an ad, but it's a balance. I find it a bit difficult to figure out what is actually working for different people, but yeah. Totally agree on the buy, don't do, and you have to have everything now. Exactly. It's a challenge, and then of course you end up strapped for money, and you don't have any money, and then you're just exhausted at the end of the day, and yeah, and then people go into debt because they feel like they're missing out, and it's just not beneficial to having humans be the best they can be, I think. I mean, humans are not just cogs in a wheel to make you wealthier. Humans are whole human beings, and technology should help us fulfill being creative human beings and not being just a cog in the wheel. Ideally, in an ideal world, that should be taken into account, and people should be allowed to be more creative, because I think it's important for humans to be creative. Physical activity is integrated into the lifestyle, which is the way humans have moved for millennia. Yeah, and there is of course a balance, because physical labor is also hard and not necessarily something to romanticize. Looking at skeletons being completely worn out from things like grinding flour manually, and archery literally skewing an entire side of a muscle into a different thing. So it's important to move, and it's important to move around, and we try to do a little bit of things ourselves, but yeah, it's important to move and also take care of our body the best we can. But we are not here to have the most pristine body by the end, are we? We are supposed to use our bodies and get scars, and at the same time try to take care of ourselves the best we can, so we don't get hurt and exhausted and all of the things. I have to get to work. Thanks for the company. I'm probably too late in saying goodbye, but goodbye. Thank you for joining us. It's very nice to have these chats. What time is it even? Oh, it's almost 6:30. So we have been doing this for an hour and a half almost. I always get lost. This is why I can't do ad breaks manually, because I get completely lost in reading chat and interacting with stuff, and yeah, I would not be able to click the button all of the time, I don't think. Not that I want to click it all of the time. That is the whole point of trying out these different settings, so that you hopefully have a less disruptive experience. And Lynn says, yeah, I got a Shane? How do you even say that? Shine? Ad here last week and thought it was very funny. Talk about not targeting your audience, right? Yeah. Then again, what can you target my audience with? But I'm all about just making the thing, not buying the thing, and repairing everything, using it until it falls apart, and then repairing it some more. So what kind of ads would even be suitable for our community? Maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot, and I shall never be rich because my community just repairs their things anyway. But yeah, it is funny when you get those very opposite ads. I could get on my soapbox about the negative aspects of capitalist culture on humanity. It's a hot topic of the moment, certainly. Certainly a hot topic at the moment, and a lot of people are feeling the effects, and people talking about how the economic differences between people, between the rich and the poor, is actually larger now than it has ever been in history, which is insane to me, thinking about the, French Revolution and those times where we hear the rich spending lavishly and there are people rioting because they can't afford bread, and to think that we are currently living at a time where finances and the rich are even wealthier compared to the everyday person than they were back then is insane to me. And I think there is, so I don't know, I mean, I know that there are issues with royalty, certainly. I don't support royalty as an institution in any way, shape or form, just because if a blacksmith's child doesn't have to be a blacksmith anymore because we don't do things inherited by blood anymore, why does that have to go for royals? They also shouldn't have to inherit a role just because they were born into it. When we remove that in ways we perceive as negative, such as you shouldn't have to be a carpenter just because your parent is a carpenter, I also think that should account for people who are on the wealthier side. Just because your parents were royals doesn't mean you should have to be a royal if you don't want to. But I will say that at least in history there was this kind of idea of noblesse oblige. I think I'm probably saying it very wrongly, but which is supposed to mean something like nobility. What would be a good English word? Obliged, but like when you are born into this role of wealth, you are also obliged to take care of your community, take care of your tenants, take care of your country. Like there is this sense of obligation that you were born, at least in an ideal sense. And we know many royals didn't adhere to this in any way, shape or form, but in an ideal sense they were supposed to have been born into this responsibility that they shouldn't take lightly. And again, royals had their issues too, and we have many examples of that absolutely not being the case, and then we have some examples of royals actually taking that responsibility seriously. But what I was getting into with that whole thing was that used to at least be an ideal for leaders of countries, but with the very wealthy these days, that is not even a thing that is on their radar, to have an obligation to their people because they have all this money and power. That isn't even something that is, on their radar at all. Ad break, alright, yeah. We are taking a little bit of a break. I caught it for once, so maybe we are actually doing that. Yeah, nobility obligates. I agree. If you ever followed the cultural edict, yeah, I agree that there are many issues in practice, in execution. But it was at least an ideal in a sense, and the extremely wealthy these days don't even have that as an ideal, which I find really scary, to be honest, that they have all of this wealth and power really, really concentrated and feel no sense of duty to their community, to anyone, really. Not even, a lot of the times you see the news, they don't even feel any obligation or duty to their workers, to their employees. I just find that astonishing. That, like, how do you get so removed from your fellow humans? It just blows my mind. And it's not something I ever want to, like, never want to get even close to that. Like, if I'm a billionaire, I've done something wrong. I've done something very, very wrong. Like, if we ever get to a point where your patronage, your support gets me into a wealthy financial position, I would want to try to give back to the community, give back to charities, give back to, yeah, in different ways, shape or forms. Because I mean, I'm just a single person. I don't need all the money in the world. We have fairly frugal living. Like I prefer to do that. I don't enjoy spending money. I don't. We have a used car because that is an accessibility tool for my spouse. That is something they need. Personally, I prefer public transit because I can just put in my headphones and zone out, but that is something that they need. But yeah, I don't think if I had all the money in the world that I would like to think that I wouldn't change much. Like I would hope to be more like Hank Green and John Green and just sort of continue being me and use that money for good causes to make the world a better place. But yeah, it concerns me that differences between the rich and the poor are yet again getting bigger and getting bigger faster than they ever have in history. Huzzah! Second ad from Garmin. How? It's because of ads that tell you you're worth it, you deserve it, you deserve it? What if we don't deserve death though? And too much stuff so we drown in it? What if we just deserve happiness and creativity and friends and neighbors and nature that isn't dying? What if we deserve that? Thanks for another cozy crafting cafe. I missed another goodbye message. I'm so bad at keeping up with chat. I'm sorry. Thank you for being here. I hope we see you again later. And abolish caste everywhere? Yeah, I would agree. And yet the rich and the poor divides are scary and how accurate they were. We were having an interesting conversation. We were visiting some family of my spouse the other day, and they were talking about Cubus. It's a clothing shop. It's a like H&M. It's a reasonably priced clothing shop, as far as I understand. At least in Norway, there are don't have Primark or a lot of those other very cheap sweatshop type places, but we do have Cubus and H&M and a couple of others, and some of them were talking about how there was this, where they grew up, there was this bias against, like you would call them, Cubus kids, that they didn't want their kids to be Cubus kids, as if having clothes from this shop was, you know, made you less than, made you less worthy, made you less cool. You know, they weren't brand clothing, they were just regular clothing, and they were laughing about it, but it was clearly a thing that their family thought about and were exposed to by, you know, friends, neighbors, people commenting about these things, people being exposed to these things in their social circles. And I had to admit, I had never even heard about that being a thing, because I grew up in hand-me-downs and flea market clothes that our grandmother got, because her favorite thing to do in the weekend was to go to flea markets and haggle with people and get, you know, trash bags full of clothes. And when you do that much flea market shopping on, you know, a very small budget, because she could haggle, and it's expected at flea markets to haggle a lot, she could get a lot of clothes. They were fantastically ugly clothes. The colors were horrifying. She liked colors, so I didn't so much, but so that was what I grew up in, and I did get bullied for that, for wearing hand-me-downs and old worn clothes. But at least I was clothed, at least I had clothes. You know, winters in Norway can be unforgiving, and the only thing that was always cold were my toes, because shoes that actually keep you warm are expensive, but the rest of me usually managed to stay warm. So having that experience growing up, you know, literally growing up in clothes of the 70s and 80s, because when I went to school in the 90s, that was what was in flea markets. I didn't even realize bias and bullying of people who grew up in the wrong new shop clothes was a thing, because that was just so far from my reality that I couldn't even envision. Like, you mean you get new clothes from a real shop on the regular? That was something that happened like once a year. Maybe you got a pair of new shoes if you couldn't find anything in the basement that fit, or you really needed it for an occasion like a celebration or a wedding or something like that. Like, it was a rare thing to get new clothes from a shop. That was an event. People love to forget how much public transit isn't accessible. Yeah, it isn't accessible for everyone. And I love it, but there are a lot of people for whom that does not work. So there always has to be a balance of, you know, having parking and accessibility of vehicles to the city, whereas those of us who can use public transit absolutely could use it more and enjoy it. I really do enjoy it because I don't have to think. I can just sit my backside on the bus and chill out. Or in the summer, I did, when I was working at the university doing my PhD, I did shell out, splurge on an electric bike. What luxury! And I still have it. It's a lot of fun to just sort of sit and pedal and just get to where you need to be, especially at the end of a long, exhausting workday. It was very nice to not have to pedal up all of those hills when you are full on in a migraine and absolutely exhausted. So that was very nice for me. I absolutely love that thing. I bought some pannier bags for it too, so I could bring all my stuff with me without having to wear a backpack, and it was the greatest luxury ever. I had only ever had a backpack to bike before, and not having to have that on my back while biking was just great luxury. I loved it. We are a bit too rural now. We have a grocery shop 10 minutes walk away, but nothing outside of that, so I don't really use the bike much now. I just go for walks if I need to go to the shop. It would be nice if we lived a little bit closer somewhere to be able to use my bike again, because it was so much fun. I really enjoy that. Del says, having ADHD and struggling with stuff has brought me to my own theory to try to make sense of my difficulties. Interesting. Yeah, I know a lot of people, at least the friends that I have with ADHD, struggle a lot with impulse spending, and then they end up with a lot of stuff in their house that is very overwhelming. And of course, when they also struggle with prioritization, it's also very difficult to get rid of stuff, because what if you need it? What if you get rid of the wrong thing? And that gets very overwhelming. So I try to limit the amount of stuff that I bring into the house as much as possible. Weird as that may be, considering we are crafters and we like to craft things and have stuff and have crafting supplies, but I try to keep it down a little bit. Like right now, I'm trying to make stuff with the things that I already have, because I have a fair amount of yarn and I have a fair amount of fabric. We could definitely be crafting for a few years before I actually need to get new stuff, unless there is, like when I came upon a really big sale for a fabric shop that was closing down, which was very sad, but people tell me that buying things on the really insane sales when people are genuinely closing down is actually good for the business owner as well, because they probably have rent and bills that are overdue that they need to pay, and it does actually help when the decision to close down has finally been made, much as that was very sad. And I got to talking to the owner and it was very emotional. I was very sad for them having run this shop for so many years, but we did benefit with many bolts of cloth, which felt both weird and nice at the same time. It was a very weird, complicated emotion to be sad for the business owner at the same time as I got all of this loot. It was a lot of conflicting emotions that day. So we try to respect that by using it for good things. And Brooke says, I really miss commuting on a bike. I did it for years. Yeah, I did it too when I worked at university, because it was so nice. We were living in this, I'm sorry if you can hear the dog howling. Someone has come home. I think our landlord has come home and she's very excited. But yeah, I did it too, and it was so nice, because if you finished, at around usual working hours in Norway is from around 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. is kind of the average for a lot of people. And it was always so nice if you finished around that time and go home on your bike, that you would just breeze by on either the bike track or the pedestrian path on the side of the road, where all the cars were lined up waiting in line to get home, just queuing very slowly and you just breezed past on your bike. It was fantastic. I would get home faster than the bus because that would also be stuck in traffic, and on the bike I was just home so fast. Oh, it was amazing. I loved it. Definitely something that I miss, and if we ever move to a slightly less rural place with, you know, a little bit more of a city and place to go to get either have a coffee with friends or everything, or just check out, you know, charity shops or meet someone, I definitely want to go back to using my glorious bike again. It was much luxury. I loved it a lot. The prints from that store closing were so beautiful. You did such a wonderful project with it. Thank you. I have more. There are more fabrics than those fabrics. There are some red wools as well, and a cotton fabric that is in this like mustard brownish yellow and green tweed type of, no, not tweed, that's the wrong word. It's a plain weave, but it's in, you know, stripes and squares and different colors that I hope to do some summer stuff with, because it's very thin and I have the whole bolt because things were only sold in the bolt, so I have so much of it. So I hope we can use, and I still have some of the print left too, to be honest, because I did manage to sew all of it into cloths in the week that I had, so I still have some left. So we will see if we make more projects with that. We'll one thing at a time. The closest market to me is 16 kilometers away and I miss city accessibility, but I love my goats more. I can understand that, definitely. There is something very nice. It's very nice to live so far from roads and noise, and there's so much life around us. We've put some bird feeders in the kitchen window and I really enjoy watching them in the morning. The other day we had a pair of cranes, common cranes, visit in the field outside, and I'd only ever seen them in Sweden before. I hadn't seen them in Norway, and they are so large. My goodness. So I mean, in body shape, I feel like they look a bit like an emu or an ostrich, but they are a lot smaller. They can actually fly, but they still have that kind of shape, and they're still fairly big. Like, these are big birds. I wouldn't be surprised if they were pretty similar in height to me. I wouldn't want to challenge them. They are really, really cool. And they were visiting, and I've seen a lot of elk and deer and other hoofed animals. And of course there's been birds of prey, so I definitely won't let my birds out. No, my cats out. They are staying safely inside with me, but there's so much life here in the rural areas, and I think that is so cool. Lynn says red wool. Yeah, red wool is cool, but it is always... Red is a challenging color to film, which was not something that I was aware of before starting to do this filming and YouTube thing, but red can be moody on camera, which is like, what? But maybe we'll make something cool with that. I'm not sure it's 100% wool. Again, maybe we'll do some burn tests of that. Again, it was, you know, a closing down sale, so I considered it in a sense dead stock. So I was like, well, we will get it and see what we will do with it anyway. But maybe we can make something fun with that. It's very thin. It's like a very thin suiting wool, not something that I used a lot in my history, because if that is 100% wool and you get as thin wool as that, they are very pricey. So it's not something that I've been able to use before, so we shall see what we do with it. Brooke says, so jealous of the UK's walking paths everywhere? Yeah, when we lived in London, we were lucky enough to have a park nearby, and that was so nice. And walking paths and being able to just walk on the side of the road everywhere, it was very nice. Although the walkability would differ depending on where you were. I had a bike path all the way to work where I could just get a used bike and breeze over the underground to work. It was very flat too, so it was easy biking. Whereas Spouse, their route to university had no bike path, so they had to be in the road with the cars, and the cars were not happy and honking and angry, and two very different biking experiences in London. So that was interesting. Del says, I want to do all of the crafts and buy all of the stuff, which in my brain feeds my impulse buying urge, so I'm actively trying to limit my craft projects to those that serve a need. Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? It's very hard with ADHD, especially when you like learning new crafts. I too like learning new crafts. I try to keep it to small portable crafts as much as I can. I want a loom in time to weave, but they are very, very big, so I'm limiting myself until I get something that we actually have space for, and they are very dusty, so I don't want to get something that is too dusty. But I can do more than I would think with rigid heddle looms. They're not as wide, but you can do a surprising amount of weaving on those too, and they are very portable and not so big, so they fit in my workroom much better. Cranes herons are huge and amazing. Yeah, and they're so pretty. We have the common cranes where I live, and they have this sort of red dot on their head. Otherwise they're black and white, and they're so gorgeous. And they will just walk around with their spindly long legs in the field looking for food, and I just sit in the kitchen window, and just look at them. They're really pretty. Really pretty birds. I hear you, Del. I'm a voracious omnicrafter. Yeah, a lot of us have that affliction, I feel. It's a shared affliction. I do like accumulating and learning new crafts. It's absolutely something that I enjoy thoroughly, just learning new things in general. I feel like I'm living in an eternal cold turkey zone at the moment, but I'll get used to it. Oh well. I hope you find some crafts that you enjoy, even with your self-imposed limitations. I know it can be hard. Where are we? That is the wrong side of that, madam. Put it on the right side. No, it wasn't. I'm just confusing myself. I just got an allergy med ad in the USA. That could be an ad for us. Maybe if you are allergic to ads, is that a thing? Yeah, but what do you have for allergies to ads, Mr. Ad Marketing person? Brooke says, I want to start spinning on a wheel, but I'm out of space. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I want to learn to spin on a spindle this year. I'm keeping myself from getting a wheel, even though I know they are more efficient. But a spindle just takes up so much less space. Because you can't have all of these crafts that take up all of this space. I mean, I'm imagining the great wheel in, you know, the Tudor Farm series on BBC, where Ruth Goodman has this enormous wheel outside of the cottage that she walks back and forth from. And it's gorgeous, and it must be a lot of fun, but I could never have space for that. Not if all of my crafts took up that much space. That would be absolutely impossible. Adrienne says, finally putting the tag on my COVID quilt that has been finished and used more than a year as I listen in. Lovely, welcome. I do that too, where things have been finished or near finished for a while before they actually get finished, like weaving in ends and all of the things. You are definitely not alone there, but it is very nice to get to put that, you know, finished, properly finished tag on a project and get that mentally sort of tide it out of the brain. I do enjoy that, and I do get a little bit more of extra motivation if it's a gift for someone, because then I feel like I have to finish it in a pretty way because it's going out of my house. But I do tend to down prioritize if I'm, you know, just making it for me, which is not how it's supposed to be, but that is often how it is for me. But I am doing well with this shawl so far, which I hadn't actually planned to give to anyone. I'd planned to be selfish and keep it for me, which we shall see how it goes. I do have a bad habit of ending up giving it to someone, or trying to give it to someone, even though I had talked about making it for myself, and then spouse will stop me because they know I always do that. It's a bit, yeah, it's not good. So I'm intending for this to be for me, to have in the workroom and when filming and stuff like that. Kyle says, my husband just gifted me a Turkish spindle a month ago. I am just learning to use it now. I also love the Tudor Farm series, all of those experimental archaeology series, to be honest. Yes, they are so much fun, and there are so many good experimental archaeologists on YouTube too. I mean, Sally Pointer is the obvious person who comes to mind, and so many reenactment groups. I mean, medieval and Viking reenactment is very popular in Norway, obviously because of the history, and they do a lot of experimental archaeology. A lot of it is not documented in any way, they are just doing it with their members between themselves, but they do so much fun stuff. I have so many friends who do amazing experiment and I just love hearing about it. And something's turning in, there's so many fun things. And I enjoy them all, anything that allows me to use my hands. But my mother bought heavily into capitalist culture stuff when I was a child, so she refused to teach me the basics. Oh no, that is so sad. Usually I hear it from the other direction, you know, children not wanting to learn craft from their parents, which I found was especially the case. I know my parent as well didn't want to learn sewing from my grandmother, who was a seamstress, so that kind of died with her, sadly. It's the first time I think I've heard of it going the other way, that the parent doesn't want to teach the child because of capitalist culture. That is interesting and very sad, because how do we keep crafts alive if we don't pass them on? It's so much harder. We know that, again, going back to experimental archaeology, we know it's so much harder to try to reimagine, rethink how a craft would have worked when it has gone out of use, than it is to just find a local crafter who still practiced that technique in that way and can just show you. Because then it's already made, already done. So keeping culture alive is so important and so underestimated. So many people these days feel like they don't have any culture, which is so sad. And there's so many things that we are gradually losing because they aren't prioritized anymore. Don't worry about babble. It's all right. I can hardly keep up with chat, but it's all right. We don't mind talking here. But I know that I'm very lucky to have been taught cooking as a child, knitting as well, but especially cooking. There are times when I can be a bit annoyed that I had to do so much cooking while I was a child, and it was so expected that I would cook several dinners a week. But I am also grateful because I have seen people who can't cook either rely entirely on expensive ready meals or having to spend a lot of time and effort learning to cook and having it be a very big mountain and a very big hurdle, as opposed to me being lucky and just sort of knowing at least basics to feed myself and being able to buy, you know, just grains and veg, and just being able to make meals for myself, which to them seems almost like magic, and for me has just been a staple since I was very, very young. So I so empathize with people who have to learn to cook as adults, because it can be very, very difficult when you don't have the basics. It's a big struggle, and a lot of people give up because it's such a big mountain to climb. But at least there are more people like Babish and other crafters who make basic series and show people how to get started, which there didn't used to be, so that is at least something. Lynn says, almost done with this apparently 4-meter long thread. Congratulations, well done. Good progress on all the project. Sally Pointer is fabulous. Did you see her making soap the other day? I haven't yet, but I will certainly check that out. Historical soap making is something I very much want to get into, because it's so much fun. And yeah, she is very, very good at making soap. I've seen several Instagram posts with her as well, making historical soap balls and bars, and super, super skilled reenactor and historian and all of the things. Sue says that shawl looks lovely. What I could see of it, I love lacy shawls. Thank you. It's the same As You Like It shawl as I just released on the channel, so if you want more close-ups of a similar one in black, but they aren't similar though, because that's the whole thing. I choose different patterns and it turns out differently. But yeah, so far I've done some snowflakes and now I'm doing dragon scales. I'm letting there be several repeats of a pattern before I start with a new one, and I'm just enjoying it as a nice, relaxing thing to do with my hands while I'm talking to all of you guys. Kyle says, I think it's part of the fear of class slide impressed upon older generation. It's sad, but things seem to be turning around. Yeah, I agree. I know some people who would refuse to teach people how to sew because being a sewist is a very low paying job and very underappreciated, much as it is very, very important, and they wouldn't want their children to do the same after they worked so hard to get out of that. So I do understand it, but having come at it from the other angle where you're told that, you know, education will solve everything, and then you have to learn that actually it doesn't, especially when society is starting to get very educated and a lot of people have degrees, and it's no longer a guarantee for a comfortable life. You get the slider in the other direction too, that maybe education isn't everything, because you don't really need, if your society is falling apart, you don't really need a professor in astrophysics or what have you, but you will need rubbish men and carpenters and plumbers and bricklayers and all of those manual labor, farmers especially, you know, bakers. You will need a lot of those people making your society go around, whereas you can make do with a lot fewer academics. Much as a lot of people are trying to sell you education as the solution to everything, and trade skills being valued less for some reason, which I never understood. They do such an important job, such an amazingly important job. Yeah, that's where your mother came from. She is full of resentment that she had to help her mother with everything from 8 years old. Yeah, I can understand that. And it's especially if you see other siblings not having to do the same. You know, I have male siblings and I didn't see them being expected to help out in the same way. To not have to be a babysitter, they didn't have to come home just to cook, they didn't have to help out with the laundry. Sometimes maybe they were expected to go outside and cut the lawn, but like a lot of male chores, they aren't as, you know, time pressing as a lot of female chores. You know, cooking dinner has to be done every day and at a certain time so that people come home and there's a dinner on the table. Childcare can't be postponed until you feel like it. Laundry has to be done, or there is, you know, no clothes in the cupboards, in the wardrobes, so they are much more pressing in terms of time, whereas if the grass grows for another day, that is not actually going to hurt anyone. But yeah, I can understand that resentment because I carry some of it myself, but at the same time there is also that divide that I'm also grateful to have the skills that it taught me, much as it is still unfair that so much was expected of me from such an early age. So there is a very much a duality there. I had to teach my roommate in college how to boil an egg. Her try with no help resulted in fire. I had a roommate do a very similar thing, although it didn't end up with a fire, but they did manage to dry boil an egg to the point where it was completely black when they remembered to check on it, which was horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. Poor people, absolutely. I feel so bad for them having to learn cooking as adults. That is such a hard thing to do. Cooking is difficult magic. My family wasn't a cooking family, so I was never even around it. Oh no. Yeah, no. In Norway, takeout and fast food are very much a lot more expensive than homemade food. So we, as a family not having a lot of money, we did make almost all our food at home, and that was expected, even if it was some, you know, partially processed things that would, like mashed potato powder and things like that. It was still like making food every day at home in various shapes and forms. I'm an historical soap maker. I don't sell soap though, I only sell the modern ones made due to insurance requirements. I can understand that. I did try making soaps for sale at some point, and because, you know, with my chemistry background I didn't have a problem with the recipes, but yeah, it's having stock and having to sell it by a certain time, and yeah, it was just all too much. I'm still getting through that stock and looking forward to the day when I've used up that old stock so that I can make some fresh batches, because I still enjoy making it. It's a lot of fun. Pardon? Didn't realize it was the same pattern? Yeah, it's the same method of thinking where you just pick a pattern, pick that diagram, knit a bit, maybe pick a different diagram, knit a bit, or just do the entire shawl in the same diagram. You do you. I am not judging. I am just putting diagrams out there, letting you have hopefully some of the process that I did, and then go forth and make cool things. Do I use goat milk in your soap? I have never used milk in my soaps, but you were asking Kale. So yeah. You do? That's why I started goat herding? That is so cool. Full circle right there. That is so cool. So satisfying to use things and minimize the waste. And yeah, it's some of the most satisfying things I find is managing to use a lot of things like vegetable ends and, you know, carrot tops, and we have a little box in the freezer where we put offcuts from vegetables and turn it into vegetable broth when the box is full, and I love it. It's so satisfying. Speaking of baking, have you seen the 19-year-old in England that has a bakery? Gluten morning is her tagline. I agree, Kale. I'm sorry I'm getting your name all jumbled. That is a fantastic name. That is so fun. I love that. Lynn says, I feel like cooking is a bit like languages. You learn more easily as a child when you're immersed in it, and can let textures and gestures sink in rather than having to understand it intellectually. Absolutely. It's a very good comparison, I think. And absolutely something that people very much underestimate in terms of how much work is required. And yeah, learning it as a child is definitely easier than having to learn it as an adult. Let's see, I think we're supposed to skip this one and then do the next one. Although when you have that experience and finally do get your hands on some of the science, you can make such a jump forward. Yes, you absolutely can. Science is very important. Like, I'm never going to be shaming and saying scientists are not important and professors are not important. It's just that you do need a lot more plumbers and binmen and carpenters and bricklayers than I think you need, and customer service professionals and all of those things. I mean, the pyramid is widest at the bottom for a reason, and professors are some of those, you know, top tier. You do need them, but you need fewer of them than others to make. I mean, every time there is a strike in, any time the trash professionals are on strike, it's amazing to see how fast trash accumulates in the major cities. It's horrifying. They are so important to modern society and especially city living. My goodness, they are absolutely essential. Go forth and makeify. Yes, very much a sentiment we support here on this adventurous, chatty, creative thingamajigs. Love goats. Yes, goats are cool. Having to leave. Thanks for letting me hang out and loved. Oh, thank you for loving it. I'm adding that shawl to list of makes. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and Sue for having to leave too. And got a phone call. Yeah, thank you for being here. Have a good whatever you're doing. I'm probably having to leave at some point too, but this is so cozy. I love goats. Had the joy of looking after some for a few years pre-COVID. Yes, goats are so cute. They have such soft little noses. I was working as a landscape gardener once, and the boss of that operation had a family that ran one of the largest farms in Tromsø, which is not particularly large because you're far north and you're jammed between mountains and the sea, so there's a very limited agricultural area. And they had their greenhouses for their summer flowers. They had on their on her older sister's land, that where they grew the summer flowers for the university gardens, and they kept goats, milking goats, and we got to visit them either when doing weeding and taking care of the summer flowers or when having a summer party, and we got to meet the goats and say hi to them and cuddle the goats. And the little goat kids are so cute. I mean, they're so mischievous. Goats are a bit mischievous, but their noses are so soft and cute. Ad break in the UK? Well, thank you. Maybe we shall take a breather and remember that I don't have to talk all the time. And let people go fetch tea and other such sundry activities. I find the hardest thing about... Back already? Oh, welcome back. Yay! It's very nice of you to keep track. I find the hardest thing with dragon scales as opposed to Gothic arches, which is just, I mean, dragon scales is just Gothic arches staggered, is to remember how to move things when you do the next little scale. But it's all good fun. So I hope people are doing well. I can never believe it when I look up at the clock and we've been going for 2 hours and I'm like, where did the time go? It's such a cliche and yet it feels so apt. Such characters. Sut is snoozing on my work table on the sweater that I leave out for her. She's so cute. Goats are such characters? Yeah, they are adorable and mischievous and all of the things. I remember the older sister of my boss who had inherited the farm. She talked about how with goats you absolutely had to, like, they had some clever goats and they would not breed on them no matter how good milkers they were, because clever goats will jump fences and run away and try things and test things. And so she was very honest. You can't breed goats to be clever because they will absolutely do so many mad things. And they were they had so many stories about goats being absolute chaos goblins, where they couldn't understand why things would move in the barn. And when they put up a camera, they discovered that the goats knew the feeding regime, so they knew when people would come and when people didn't come. So this is like in winter when they're inside, in summer they're outside obviously. But they would look at the camera and see that the goats would very cleanly make a very high bounce out of their pens and would run around in the barn having fun, knocking things over, playing with each other, just being general chaos creatures. And then before they were fed again, they would very cleanly jump back in. So at least that was one mystery solved, but yeah, they definitely had to be cautious not to breed the goats that were escape artists and creating too much trouble, much as they were very adorable. But yeah, goats can absolutely be a handful, but they are so very cute. You haven't gotten an ad yet? That is good. Well, ads will vary depending on your region. So depending on which country you're in, different people will, advertisers will pay more or less for you to get an ad. So sometimes you don't get a lot of ads if you're in a region where they don't pay a lot for ads. So it varies depending on where you are. So it's just a chance of an ad happening and not a guarantee that you will get an ad, luckily, because that would be a lot. Adrienne says, we visited family in Charleston last weekend and I got a lemongrass tea with blue butterfly flower that was very blue. It's a big hit with my 6-year-old. That sounds so much fun. I only knew about hibiscus that colors the tea very red. I hadn't heard about one that colors it very blue. That is very cool. Lee says, hello, I'm late this evening, but I do have my knitting and a glass of white wine. Well, welcome. We are just winding down, being very slow and talking about ads and monetization and goats and cooking and all of the random things that one does when going on tangents. Amelia says no ads here either. Yeah, it's very random. You never know who actually pays for different ads in different regions and how many ads get served. It's yeah, it's just when ads come, it's often just a chance of an ad, but you will notice that countries with a larger spending and will often get a lot more ads because they have much bigger marketers with much bigger budgets. So places like the US, the UK, Canada, Australia will often have a lot more ads than countries where you aren't getting advertised to as much. But it is very variable. That's adorable. The ghost story, yeah. Feel like you've shared a bit much and in public too? I hope you don't feel bad. I hope you don't feel too scared. You can always go back and delete it if it is problematic to you. If you are scared of sharing it, so it's okay. Don't worry. Whenever I make a fool out of myself, I always soothe myself by reminding myself that people care a lot more about themselves than they care about you. So if you feel like you look weird and people are going to stare at you, a lot of the time people are far too busy thinking about how you perceive them to perceive you in a very negative light. For most people, anyway. Sometimes we have some exceptions to that rule, people who mind your behavior or such a little bit much, but generally people are much more concerned about how they are perceived themselves to be very critical of how others, or of perceiving others. So that generally will calm me down a bit when I'm feeling like I'm being very awkward and you know, many ums and ahs and awkwardness and weird behavior, and we're in the city and I'm exhausted and overstimulated and I just want to go home and hide because I'm exhausted. That generally, so long as you are polite and not, you know, being really rude to customer service personnel, which you shouldn't anyway, they are doing their job helping you. So long as you just try to behave like a nice, polite person to other humans, it's usually fine. People are much more concerned with themselves than they are with you, and that goes for everyone. So it's alright. Yeah, like Brooke says, you're good. It's all good. It's nothing to be scared of. Have I tried rebatching my old soap? It's a great way to freshen old soap with new scents. I haven't. I have been. There are always new crafts to do, but maybe I will try that. But I am starting to get to the end of my old batches that are pretty much scentless. And I pretty much decided to just do the unscented bars that I made, that I developed for my friends with sensitive skin, because it lathers beautifully and it was very popular. It hardened up nicely and it was just a winner all around. So excellent gift material and also good soap for a variety of uses. I mean, I block my knits with it, I wash my hands with it, I do a lot of stuff with it. So it was a very nice utilitarian soap for many different uses. I will definitely be making that and not be so into all the fragrances and things like that, because I found that I didn't really, it wasn't really necessary. I just wanted a simple bar of soap that did the job, and I didn't personally need it to have a very specific fragrance for that. Much fun as fragrances absolutely are. But I haven't tried rebatching them. I shall have to look into that a little bit, but I do think I'm finally getting to the end of my old soap. Milia says, an old saying from Finland proper in the southwest near Turku is, if you don't have any other troubles, get yourself a goat or maybe two. I can understand where that saying comes from. Absolutely. That's a fantastic little saying. Blue pea flower colors blue too, and if you add sugar, it goes purple. That is really cool. A lot of purple dyes in nature are pH indicators, so they will change color from purple to blue when they go a little bit basic and stuff like that. So things like purple cabbage can actually be a pH indicator. It's a fun experiment to do with kids, show that, and blueberries too, that it can go from purple to a much more pale blue. It's a lot of fun to show them without a lot of risk involved with young children and chemicals. That's something that we do a lot as demonstrations. And a friend of mine too, doing a lot of educational outreach with younger students, will show off the cabbage dye experiment, because it illustrates a point with household items, which is often something that you want to do. He says, I have more ads when I'm home in Italy than when in Norway, like now it's less. So you get more ads in Italy, yeah. Yeah, it's exactly, it varies on country and where they prioritize spending and how they prioritize spending, and it's just not super predictable. It's just yeah, sometimes you get ads, sometimes you don't. It hopefully is not too disruptive. I will have to remember that goat quote. Yes, it was a very good one. I like it. Gotta go watch the dog. Thanks for a nice evening. Thank you too. I hope you have a good walk and have a good rest of your day. Purple cauliflower too, I guess all brassica. As far as I've heard, although I haven't actually verified it, I think it's all natural purple colors. So a lot of, like, if a food is purple, that chemical that makes it purple is probably going to be a pH indicator. I haven't tested or done any deep dives on that, but that is what I've heard, which is super cool, that like most purple dye molecules in food and plants are very often pH indicators. I hadn't heard about the cauliflower, but that is really cool, but it sort of fits into that anecdote that I have been told, but again, I haven't actually verified, but I had heard that most, if not all, molecules that dye food purple actually do have that kind of indicator that changes color, which is super cool. It would be cool to like compile a list and see if it's true, if we can find the exception that breaks the rule. It's always the thing, isn't it? Finding the experimental condition that doesn't work rather than looking for stuff that works, because you're usually going to find stuff that works. It's great because you can switch the color just by adding a dash of vinegar in the cooking water. That's such a cool party trick too. Like, imagine having, like, you take out half of the cauliflower and then you add a little bit of acid and then you take out the rest and you suddenly have a pile of blue and purple cauliflower to serve to people just for funsies. And it's the same thing. It's everyday magic in practice. Purple is one of my siblings' favorite color, including my late baby sister. That is, I'm sorry that she's your late sister, but I find you also find that purple is people who love purple are very vocal about loving purple, which I think is very sweet. And we found that on the Discord server too, that purple was the most popular, followed by teal, and people who love purple are very happy to be very loud about loving purple, which I think is very cute. I just love colors, but I think it's very sweet that they are very much on the side of purple. Yeah, I grew purple cauliflower and it turned blue when cooked. On the plate it looked like something from a sci-fi movie. Tasted great though. That is so much fun. It's a lot of fun to do that sort of everyday magic. And although I will say that when it happened in reverse, I was always a little bit sad. I remember always trying new legumes and beans at Asian grocery stores, because they have so much variety, and especially now with the multi-cooker that someone gifted me, it's much easier for me to cook beans. But I remember as a student buying a bag of, I think they were borlotti beans, you know, those that are white with little red specks, and they're super pretty when dried. They're so gorgeous. And then you boil them and they just turn beige. I was so disappointed. The first time I made a batch, I thought they were going to be equally colorful when boiled, and they just, all that beautiful, beautiful color just faded out, and I was like, oh, what happened to my beautiful beans? Still gorgeous when dried though, but I was a little bit sad that they lost the color when boiled, I will admit. Bicarb added to the water is alkali? Yes, it is. Vinegar for acid and bicarb for food-safe alkalis works to push the pH in either direction. It's a lot of things we can do to manipulate that in practice without using very dangerous chemicals, which is a good way of teaching people everyday chemistry. Pardon? Dyed eggs purple with blueberries once. Eggshells are mostly calcium. Can't remember if we went more blue. I think they were fairly darkish and purple blue. Yeah, that is a fun experiment to do, dyeing eggshells. And you can make really cool dishes with purple and yellow cauliflower and a bit of broccoli. That does sound fun. Absolutely worth it. We don't have such big variety in the grocery stores here. I would have to grow them myself, and I'm still very much practicing my gardening thumb. I am not very good at that yet, but I'm slowly in doing it and enjoying it, and you know, being careful not to expose myself to too much light and sun because that will give me a migraine. But we've started a very small little vegetable garden this year and hoping it gets better every year. That is one thing that when I was working as a landscape gardener for the university that I worked at, and we were maintaining the university properties, was that my boss would always talk about how they really liked gardening because it was such a good example of life, like a microcosmos. Because if something didn't work out, if you bought the wrong plants, if something didn't, like the summer flowers didn't end up the way you thought they would die when winter came, and you would try again the next spring. And it was okay. Making mistakes was okay because nature just wiped the slate clean and you try it again. And I always thought that was a really nice analogy for people who struggle with anxiety and stuff, because you just try again and it's okay. And I really liked that. That was a very educational for me as a young, 18, 19 years old, to have someone talk about it in such a healthy way that, so you're gonna make mistakes and that's okay, and then you get better and you try again and you improve. And sometimes you make really expensive mistakes, and sometimes it's not a problem. Oh, the cooking water, I just remembered, was a beautiful teal color. Interesting. Yeah, that is really interesting. I was thinking about maybe I can make an ombre violet hat for one of my siblings, but I'm not sure I can use the darker or lighter shades. But maybe like a mid-light to dark shades of purple. Try it out. Go for it. See how it goes. And just have fun with it. Does salt have a pH? It's just sodium and chloride, so it shouldn't have much of an impact on the pH at all. They are very nice little molecules. It depends on the salt though, because I'll be pedantic and a chemist and say that salt isn't always just sodium chloride. It can be other things too. But sodium chloride, so table salt, shouldn't have an impact on pH. It just adds ions to the water that don't affect the hydrogen stuff at all, or the OH minus and other acidic. It wouldn't affect the pH of the water. But I would have to pull out my textbooks in order to get a good illustration that isn't me just rambling like a lunatic. But all the baking sodas, bicarbonate of soda and those kinds of things. Baking soda, baking powders, both alkalis, and all the vinegars are acidic. Lemon juice as well. All the citrus juices are generally acidic. Lemon juice a lot more than orange juice. And I was thinking, do we have other alkalis in the kitchen? I'm sure we do. A lot of soap. Most soap is alkali. Laundry detergents, certainly. Like those strong detergents, they are alkalis. It's always the problems when you put a chemist on the spot. They'll be like, or at least I will be like, I want to go reference the Google and my textbooks and just making sure that I'm giving the accurate information. Because it's one thing that I learned with education is that it isn't so much about memorizing everything, it's about knowing where to find the information. Because that is the most important thing. Is knowing where to find the information, who to ask, and not being a know-it-all who will make a lot of mistakes because they can't admit that they don't remember a thing. Ad break in the UK, yeah, I feel like, Del, you're getting all the ads when other people are getting none of the ads, which is interesting and certainly very illustrative of how ads are being spent in the UK. That does make sense. That is a very attractive market for advertisers. My ad was a public health PSA. Interesting. Yeah, I get some of those too, where you have this public information, people wanting you to file your taxes and remember that such and such public service does such and such service, like health department and other things that they do different things. Ads, George? It's getting frustrating, but only because I'm participating in the chat and don't want to miss the answer. Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm not very good at pausing because I get forgetting, but I didn't have any other examples for alkalis and acids in the kitchen. It was laundry detergents and baking soda and baking powder are alkalis, whereas the vinegars and the citrus juices are going to be acidic. I'm sure there are other examples too, but I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are several. And of course, was it milk that is slightly alkali, or is it? And then you have sodas being acidic because of the carbonation, and there are always these scales that I'm looking at. Coffee is acidic, tea is acidic, not very strongly, but just slightly. I think milk is slightly alkali, but not very strongly. Vinegars and the baking sodas are going to be the stronger ones. We just had an ad in the US also. Mine was bar shampoo. That is at least something that doesn't usually have a lot of packaging, hopefully. If only all ads could be pieces of advice. Yeah, PSAs, agreed. Public service announcements would be much easier to deal with than all the ads, and you can at least understand the use of those. So thank you to those of you who sit through the ads. I know it's frustrating. We do not like the ads, but sadly they do make the internet go round. Hopefully we can use ads one day for some good things and not just frustrating things in the background. Oh, sorry, it's a meme. Spiders George about statistics. Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember that off the top of my head. That is, I'm not up to date with my memes. Sad. Becoming old. Is sugar basic? Yeah, I mean, it's a complex carbohydrate. It has a lot of alcohol groups on it, but if it shouldn't be very alkali if that was the case. I can't answer off the top of my head. I can't remember. We can check its pKa stuff. Let us see if we can sugar. If it has a pKa. What? No, I don't want the history of sugar. I want the glucose molecule. Rude. Give me a glucose molecule. Glucose. Do you have information about? Because I mean, it does have a carboxylic acid group and a couple of alcohol groups. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. At least not neutral, but the carboxylic acid group does make me think that it might be a little bit acidic rather than alkali. I can't see a pKa immediately on the wikis. I'm not going to be too distracted by that, checking that out. But a short answer, I don't remember. But it's a good question. There are many things in our kitchen that are interesting. I believe milk becomes more acidic as it ages. That makes sense. I mean, fermentation makes things acidic, so any fermented food is going to be acidic. So that would make sense. So cheese and stuff that's aged would be acidic, and sauerkraut and pickled cabbage and kimchi, all of those would be acidic too, because they make vinegar as they process the sugars in the food. I guess I can buy a second one to make something similar, like a bag, socks, gloves, mittens, or anything. Yeah, go for it. There's always more stuff to make. Go try out your idea and see how it works. See how you like it. You can always give it away to someone else, or unraveling needle binding is difficult, but there's always something. Or even have it as a... I like to try to have a little stack of hats and gloves if people have forgotten theirs, so that they can have it if they are cold. Which is useful. I want to make a stack of guest slippers in different sizes, but I just haven't had the time yet to do that. But it seems like a useful thing to have when we have a house that is fairly cold in winter. But it's just time and spoons to make a large stack of slippers to have for guests. But it would be nice if I could manage that, because it seems a very hospitable thing to do. It's okay, Kristine, I can watch back later. I've probably said enough for one chat anyway. Well, that is one of the benefits you get when you're in a small live, though. I mean, I imagine things might grow with time and we won't have this kind of intimate conversation where we can talk a lot and not get lost in the chat forever. That might grow with time. So I don't mind. We are having conversations now, and those conversations will change with time, and yeah, it's either which way we will, with like the Buddhistic frame of mind that you will never have exactly the same conversation again. It will always be a slightly different one, so every moment is its own thing, which I don't appreciate as much as I perhaps should in my daily life, but I do try to remind myself occasionally to try and stop and be a little bit in the moment. But it is very hard. There's always more crafts to do and more places to be and people to talk to and things to do and projects to plan and all of the things. Trying to figure out why it settles hiccups. Well, the science around hiccups is interesting in and of itself, so who knows? Lactofermentation is amazing? It is. And so much fun too. You get so many complex flavors and things stay crisp far into winter. And like with drying or freezing, it just stays crisp and just gets tangy and delicious. Yeah, I love it. It is a lot of fun to practice different fermentation techniques. I've been making some very mild kimchis. I mean, Korean people, I'm sorry, it's not actually a proper kimchi without all the spice, but I cannot handle all the spice, so I do just a little bit of chili. But I did find a recipe with a lot of ginger and garlic and a little bit of chili and, chives and carrots and an apple and all of the fun bits. So I try to use those, and I try to have a little bit of that with our meals on a regular basis, because we know it's good for our systems, and I do try to find new ways to put more veg into the meals, because we know it's something that I find it easy to grab a piece of fruit, but I'm less good about having more veg, so I try to sneak them in wherever I can. And fermented veg is a very easy way to just have a vegetable side dish without having to cook anything, which is very nice, I will admit. I really value these crafting lives. Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy them. I'm really glad you enjoy them, and I mean, I wouldn't have continued if no one showed up, so it's nice for me too, and I get someone to talk to, and we get to have an evening together, and I think they're very nice too, and people get encouraged to make things and knit and chat and chill and having a good time and taking a break, hopefully, from the outside world a little bit, even though we do talk about the outside world a whole lot, so I suppose we aren't entirely taking a break from it, but a little bit in a way. But I do think, looking at the time, we've been going for 2.5 hours, that I will finish this needle and then we will call it for tonight. But it's been very nice talking about all of the things. I am definitely having fun talking to you and seeing a lot of faces regularly and getting to know you in the Discord and having fun. It's so nice to see you interacting with each other as well in the Discord, that I don't have to be there to facilitate discussion. You will talk to each other, and I just love that kind of community growing and building and having that kind of nice interaction. That is sort of part of what I hoped, that we could have a community that is dynamic and independent and just fun. Pickles and fried rice are a great way to add vegetables. Yes. I've also tried, especially now in the colder parts of the year, less so when it gets a lot warmer, I've been making this dish inspired by dal and congee. I wouldn't call it either because, I mean, it's just accumulation, but I will take like vegetable broth or something that I've made and some sort of grain and legumes and then leftover veggies, roast pumpkin, carrots, whatever, and throw it in a pot with some spices and have this kind of soupy, vegetable-y breakfast meal. And I've been enjoying it a lot with flatbread in the morning, having a nice thing I can just throw in the microwave and have breakfast ready to go like that. And it's more veg and stuff than bread and something on it, which would be very traditional Norwegian breakfast, and that has been really nice. And again, with the multi-cooker from my the multi-cooker that I got for the winter holidays this year, it's been very easy to make them. Very easy to make that kind of soupy porridgey food, and very easy to boil beans, very easy to boil broth. It's been very, very nice, and a lot easier to implement beans and legumes into our diet at home with that device, because I can just set it and leave it for a few hours and come down to lunch already magically made. It's amazing, and things don't burn on the stove, or I don't have to babysit them. That has been really, really nice. It's been for first chat you've been able to attend. It's been very relaxing. Thank you. I'm so glad you had a good time, that you found it relaxing even as I go on ranty little tangents. It's a lot of fun to hang with you all as well. You will have to find the Discord. Let me share a link with you. Let me see, where's my link? Wait, that's the wrong button. I should have a link for you. It should also be in the description on the video, on the lives in the most recent video, but here is a link anyway. And so many interesting topics have come up. I'm glad you think so. I just feel like I'm rambling about random stuff, but it's very nice to talk to you about all of these different things. But yes, you are being encouraged to join the Discord. We are having a lot of fun stuff. And remember, since you make soaps, I mean, you're more than welcome to share it in the general crafting show-off channels. But if there are specific channels that are requested for crafts, I am very much willing to open those. I've been thinking of creating 2 new categories, like one for digital art, AI excluded, and one for traditional art. So things that aren't fiber arts and sewing, but can be anything else, you know, like soap making, leathercraft, woodworking, blacksmithing, all of those different things. And of course, digital art being anything from digital creations, digital drawing, to animation, to game design, to we have a separate channel for writing, but all those kinds of digital fun things that we could have if people want them to. I just don't want to make the Discord too big and echoey if it's too early when we are not that many, but I have been thinking about that if people find that interesting. But we also have the general chat, general crafting channels where people are more than encouraged to share all the fun stuff that they make. I heard rice has a high proportion of folic acid, which I can be a bit deficient in. Oh yeah, rice is very nice. I enjoy rice a lot. We have recently, when I went to our local Asian grocery store, which has such a huge selection of all the things, I got a big bag of our regular rice, and they had a small bag of red rice as well, and I just bought it for fun, and it was super cute. Very nice just for variety. And again, with the new magical multi-cooker that just cooks things magically, I just pop rice in and I just click the button and it's done. It's been amazing. I could never decide between a pressure cooker and a multi-cooker, so having one gifted to me was just like, okay, I guess the decision is made for me. And I know that with kitchen appliances, they usually get stowed away if you don't learn to use them, so I'm very cautious with kitchen appliances. There's a lot you can do with just a pot and a wooden spoon and a knife and a cutting board. So I don't have a lot of things that demand electricity. So we have a kitchen machine, so a Kenwood, so similar to a KitchenAid, that helps us bake breads because it has the little hook that does the kneading of the bread for you, which is very useful. Nice accommodation there for accessibility. And then now we have that little multi-cooker. And I know that spouse does occasionally want a coffee maker for when we have guests, but we don't drink enough coffee for it to be for us, so we just have small things like that. But I don't have any other... Well, I do have a kettle, a little electric kettle for my tea, but I generally try to be like, can I do it in the oven or stove? Because I don't like... They take up so much space, don't they? The appliances. What is a multi-cooker? Well, they are not very common in Norway. They haven't been yet. So it's a kind of... It's a rice cooker, but it cooks more things. So it has some settings for soups and stews and steaming. I haven't tried all of the settings yet, but they seem to be fairly similar, just like different intensity. And what I like about them is that whereas in a pot traditionally on the stove, I would have to, you know, put it on a high heat to get it to boil, and then turn the heat down again to put it down to a simmer and make sure it didn't boil over and keep watch of it so that it doesn't stop boiling. This one just does all those steps for you. So I just have a little pot, I guess, a little bowl, like in a rice cooker, and I can put in, it needs to be some liquid. If you're steaming, it needs to be some sort of liquid. And then you pop in, so in this case I will often pop in like vegetable broth and vegetables and rice or red lentils or beans or barley or something like that, and then I will, put it on the porridge setting, which is a little bit gentler than the soup setting, which boils everything. It's nice for boiling broth and get a nice concentrated broth at the end. And then I just pop the lid on and I press play, and it sort of just goes. It's not a pressure cooker, so it's not an instant pot, so because I could never decide, and this person just got me one of them so that it just sort of cooks things for you. And so it's a little bit of a help in the kitchen to make a lot of different things, which I've been enjoying and trying to learn how to use it. I've heard that you can make like steamed cakes and things like that. I would like to learn to make caramel pudding in it, because I am very fond of caramel pudding. It's one of the things I really like. But yeah, I'm working on learning to use it, which has been a lot of fun. So it's a little helper that I can put on and just let it, like, I know that if I press play, it has safety functions, so if it boils dry, it will just stop, it will turn off, it won't burn, and I can just let it go while I go upstairs to work, and I can just come down to lunch being warm and finished. It has been very nice. May I make you smile at my error? I'm knitting a washcloth with a monogram for my sister, and I see how that my printmaker brain has flipped the letters. Instead of TH, it became HT. Oh no! That does seem like a problem as a printmaker that I don't have to experience in a similar way. That is an adorable, in a sense, and a very understandable mix-up. Brooke says, we have an Instant Pot and it terrifies me. Yeah, I was not sure if I wanted which one I wanted, because I knew the pressure cooker would be much faster, but honestly, I am such a homebody. I spend so much time home anyway, so for me, having to pop things in the pot and having it boil for 4 hours, it's not very problematic. And when we have saved up like a lot of bones, so my spouse enjoys like chicken wings, and we will save the bones, put them in the freezer, and when the box is full, I will boil them for 4 hours, and I will take out the broth, and I will just put the bones back again and boil them like 4 times for 4 hours, which is the maximum on the soup setting, and then I will just magically have 4 liters of magical broth at the end of it, which is fantastic. But yeah, it's not... the multi-cooker does not have a pressure pot function, at least mine doesn't. I don't know, maybe some of them do. But yeah, there were some accidents with pressure cookers in the 70s, I think, in Norway, and so they never really took off here, not like in the States. So they're still very much an unknown in Norway. I don't know anyone who has one. But it has been very helpful for our household, because I am, like, again, with my background, I am the one who cooks the most, because it's easiest for me to cook, because I have a lot of experience, a lot of recipes in my head, and I don't mind, but I also need to work on the channel. So it has been a nice balance in that way to have that little kitchen assistant help me cook a lot of things and having it help me, especially with boiling beans, which I struggled with because I could never get the balance between boiling them tender and not having them crack, and the multi-cooker just does it magically for me. I just put it on an hour or an hour and a half for chickpeas and they're just done. It's magic. I love it. Fantastic. I am definitely like investing time in learning to use it, and it's so much fun. Now you want pudding? Yeah. It's been a while since I made caramel pudding. It is one of the things that I really love. It should be like soft to the point of not really being solid, but it needs to be completely solid. But it should also be soft and with a good layer of caramel. Delicious. Like an Instant Pot in the North America, perhaps? Yeah, perhaps, except it isn't actually a pressure cooker. I think of it more like a rice cooker with several different cook functions, so it doesn't just boil rice, it also boils soups and porridges, and because I don't have the lid that I can screw on to give it pressure. There's no pressure involved, so it just boils. But there might be multi-cookers that can pressurize things. I'm not sure, but mine can't. So maybe? I don't know that much about them, to be honest. I have a multi-cooker, one version of Instant Pot as well, but I don't use it even nearly as much as I should. I just haven't really gotten used to it. Yeah, see, that is the big problem. And I knew I was going to run into that problem when I got it if I didn't invest the time to try to learn to use it and get used to using it. Because when you get a new kitchen appliance, my family once got, when I was a child, a potato peeling machine, and it was utterly useless. It was the size of a rice cooker. It shredded your potatoes to bits. Like, you lost 50% of the potatoes and you still had to take a knife and like peel out the little eyes because they're grooves in the potato. And then you had to spend twice as much time as you would have spent just peeling the potatoes washing the damn thing. It was so useless, and so many kitchen appliances end up like that, which is why I don't like to have too many kitchen appliances. I'm very conservative with what I let into my kitchen, because as a friend of mine would say, like, counter space has a high rent. Like, it's expensive. If you want to be on my counter, you better be worth it. And there are so many things I can do with a knife and a cutting board. So I am very cautious, but I was curious about this once and someone got it for me and I was very grateful. So I'm trying to learn to use them, and so far what I've found is easy for me to use is, again, to boil soups, to boil broths, to boil beans, and to steam things, although I'm still getting used to that. I have some metal steaming racks and I can't use them because it ruins stuff, so I want to get some different things, but it is like with everything, it is a learning curve to learn how to use them. But I have found they have been helpful because I want to get more soup in my spouse. They need more soups, more broth, more bone broths and stock and good things for their gut, I think, and more vegetable. And that is an easy way to make more vegetables and an easy way to make some meals. And I've also seen people make some really cool, they call it, I think, pot in pot meals, where they will have things like, they will have a nice stew or a dal or a curry or something with flavor in the bottom, but they also have, because as it's boiling, it produces steam, so they will put a basket or something with rice or something else on top, so that as the stew is boiling, so the rice gets cooked, and then you open it and you have both your carb and your veg and a soup dish, which I've only tried once, and I think I made a mistake and filled my pot too big because my rice got dyed the same color as the stew, so it was mildly beige, I don't think that was supposed to happen. But it was an interesting thing. So sounds messy? It wasn't too messy, because it was just an extra steamer rack, and it's the pot, the bowl and the lid are like separate and they get washed anyway, so it turned out to be quite alright. But yeah, it's still definitely something that I'm getting used to. I've only had it for 4 months now, I think, so it's definitely still a learning curve, I find. Mine's a rice cooker, a soup maker, pressure cooker for casseroles, and a slow cooker. Yeah, mind-boggling, 12 different applications. I don't remember how many mine has, but I find that I return to just a couple of them, like the rice cooker, the soup function, the steaming function, and the porridge function, I think, are the ones I've been using the most. The stew function I haven't been using a lot. It seems like, how is it different from the porridge function? I wish there was. I will admit, I wish the manual was a little bit more forthcoming in what the different settings actually do, but I am experimenting with it. Like, the porridge setting is a lot more gentle boil than the soup setting, which is a fierce rolling boil, which is useful to know, but I wish they would just tell me this in the manual or on their website, I will admit. So that is one grief I have about it, is give me more details about what the different programs do, because I want to know. I put stuff to steam above my rice in the rice cooker regularly. Works great as long as the timings are comparable. Yeah, exactly. So that is something that I'm experimenting with. I've also been experimenting with steaming eggs to get like medium boiled or hard boiled eggs. It works great for that. Steaming eggs is fantastic. Again, I can just set it and leave it and come back and their eggs are done. Fantastic. I love that. And yeah, I'm just learning to use it in general, and that always takes time, learning to use a new thing. And again, no one in my vicinity, in my social circle, in my family have these things. The most they have is a rice cooker, which is the most similar thing, and they're usually only used to making rice in them. Even though I know you can make a lot of other things, as I see on the social medias, people being very creative, making cakes and whole meals and from like steaming eggs on top of the rice and having so many different cool things to use. And I really love that kind of creativity to help people make meals in the very busy capitalist hellscape that we talked about earlier. That is very much a thing. So having ways to feed yourself that is a little bit faster and easier on you is definitely something that I'm very much in favor of. But but we were supposed to end this live already many minutes ago, so I think we are gonna call it there. Thank you all very much for joining me. It was very cozy. We talked about many different things, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you all again soon. Bye!